Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It is, of course, Friday the 13th. It's Friday the 13th, people!
Oh no!
Go, dive! You know, that's supposedly a very bad thing because it's supposed to be a superstition that bad things happen on Friday the 13th. Well, I've got some very good news for you. Bad things don't happen on Friday the 13th right now because here we are on the Mike Graham Show. Rafe Hardelmain-Koo is here from the New Culture Forum. Rafe, very good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. It's about 1 minute past 7, so we're slightly tardy. But as you can see from the international clock behind me, it is not that much past 7 o'clock. As you can see, and we'll be, and funnily enough, we've got some batteries. Yeah, somebody sent some batteries yesterday to put into the clock. So we've got no excuse now not to have the batteries clocks running well. So we'll keep a tab on that if you don't mind, Pooch. Just remind me to check in every now and again with the clock to see whether or not we're actually doing the right thing at the right time. But we've got a bunch of papers here. We'll be talking to you about the big stories of the day. Unfortunately, I've got some bad news for you. Which is that Keir Starmer appears to still be the Prime Minister. He hasn't left yet, unfortunately, despite the fact that he's now been completely and utterly humbled and admitted that it was his mistake and his fault that Peter Mandelson was hired, despite the fact that he was told by all and sundry that you shouldn't hire him. We'll also be talking about the latest from Iran, what's going on there. Apparently the British base was attacked yesterday. But don't worry, we haven't got any defensive forces to send to put there in place so that we can make sure that it doesn't do any harm to us. Also, we'll be telling you all about what's coming up later on in the show, including Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's going to be here at 9 o'clock to talk to us about what he thinks about the state of play in this country. And also we'll be looking at the economic figures, which are proving to be even more horrendous than we thought they were going to be. But anyway, so there we are. If you want to get in touch with us, of course, you can send us any number of different types of messages. You can find us on Twitter or X, which is, of course, the main place that I look at, and it's at IROMG. You can find us on Facebook, where there's all sorts of chat rooms. There's a Mike Graham Show chat room. There's a Mike Graham Show fan club. There's there's all manner of places you can go. There's also, of course, on the YouTube chat, a place where you can send your super chats to. What do we call them?
Super chats, yeah.
Super chats, yeah. And if you send us those, we will read them out. And so lots to do, lots to talk about. Should we kick things off first of all? Ben Habib is going to be on as well, I think, this morning, who's not very happy about the way this government is panning out. And who can blame him? Because everybody, I think, I don't think there's anybody in the country who thinks this government is actually doing a good job. Rafe, very good morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. I see you're sort of poring over the papers there. There's no sort of massive story here today. But it's a kind of continuation, isn't it, of the state of play, the state of the government, the lies that are being told by Keir Starmer every single day, on a day-by-day basis, and also the whole kind of foreign policy nut job that's going on about Iran.
Yeah, no great big story apart from just relenting depression from the front pages. A lying prime minister who is up to his neck in it. And of course, the continuing saga in Iran, where of course we now have British bases attacked, and we've got the continuing problems in the Straits of Hormuz. Yeah. We've now learned that actually Putin is going to be benefiting from all of this. Who would have guessed that? Over £100 million a day Russia is now making. Trump has just lifted Russian sanctions. I'm sure that was a very painful thing for him to do.
Yeah.
So things clearly aren't going to plan there. All over the place. It seems like a big sugar show.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, and what exactly is... I know it might sound like a stupid question, but what exactly is our policy on Iran? I don't know what it is.
Our policy is not to defend our interests in Iran. I think that's clearly the stated policy. Yeah. Not only did we have our Cyprus bases attacked and we did nothing at all, but now, of course, we've had our co-owned base in Iran has been attacked in Erbil, and I'm pretty sure we won't do anything about that too.
Yeah.
Now, of course, whenever Iran is attacked, they retaliate immediately. When Israel's attacked, they retaliate immediately. When France or America is attacked, We just say, okay, we'll turn the other cheek to you, as if somehow we're some sort of priest or Starmer dressing up in Jesus' clothing.
Well, again, another description of how sort of Keir Starmer doesn't understand the real world. He lives in a world surrounded by lawyers, where when Cyprus was initially hit by a rogue sort of drone from Iran, the British government's line was, they probably didn't mean to send it there. It's a bit of a mistake, so we're not going to go after them. And you go, well, sorry, you've just been attacked by a drone in your, sovereign state of Cyprus, which is your British Army base. Why are you not retaliating? Oh, well, because, it was a mistake.
Yeah. How lily-livered and weak and feeble must you be to actually see your military airbase, which could be used by the Americans, has been struck by mistake? What an amazing coincidence. In the whole of Cyprus, you just happened to target this tiny little ground. Absolutely.
And it turned out as well, which was what I found interesting, was that they didn't just target the British base, they targeted a specific part of the British base, which actually housed an American spying unit, which has been spying on the Middle East for decades, apparently, from where American planes go up and basically sort of, map out all of the bad stuff that they think they can see in every country in the Middle East, including Iran, including Iraq, including Gaza, Syria. They basically send planes up from this particular... So it was a very specifically targeted strike.
A very specifically targeted coincidence with GPS involved in it, yes.
And Starmer went, it was a mistake.
Well, I mean, the thing is now, we're just being laughed at. Not only do we have the humiliation of having President Macron in Cyprus defending British territory, I mean, that has to really, it does stick in the craw hugely. We have a government now that's basically saying it's carte blanche to everyone to basically have a go. Maybe the Argentinians will now be saying, we may try for the Falklands. You can't get a single ship even to your own theatre of operations in the Mediterranean. How on earth are you going to defend Argentina after all of this? I mean, this has been actually overall for our military, because of the incompetence of our leadership as well. I think the Royal Navy and the military are at our lowest ebb since Henry VIII lost the Mary Rose. This is 500 years.
I mean, you're probably not old enough to remember the
Mary Rose, definitely not.
No, I mean, definitely not the Mary Rose. No, that was not what I was going to say. But I was going to say probably the Falklands. I mean, I remember the Falklands War kicking off, and I was in my early 20s. And I remember feeling, and I'd sort of grown up through the years of punk rock, and I was not particularly pro-establishment or anything like that, but I remember feeling a sort of sense of pride, national pride, to the point where I thought, you know what, if they want me to go, I'll sign up, and I'll go and, put myself into the military, and I'll go and fight the bloody Argies, because how dare they try and take our Malvinas from us. And I remember watching the news and thinking, this is amazing. We are going to defend something that we believe is right to defend. And it gave us a great sense of pride, And now, if you were now 20, 21 years of age, watching what we're doing now, I think you would have absolute shame thinking about the way this government is not defending our rights.
It's absolutely shameful. And it's my earliest memory, actually, was of the boys coming back in 1982. And the great flotilla and all the people waving the flags. One of my earliest memories I have. But remember, of course, the Falklands War came when Thatcher was hugely unpopular, and it made her. And she turned into the Iron Lady, secured her victory. Very hard-pressed to see how Starmer would have such a turnaround if the Falklands were attacked. In fact, we would just be saying, my God, how incompetent are you? Because the warning signs were all there. Now, about 5 years ago, the British military and the Navy said, actually, we're not capable of assembling the type of force that we assembled in 1982. Here we are 4 years later, we can't do it because our military is so run down. And now we know we can't even get a single ship in the water for a week or so, and then only one of them. I really do think we have to have a serious review of our military. We're talking about increasing spending on defence. Couldn't come early enough, but all we've had are headlines. No money has actually gone into them. They say there's a £28 billion black hole.
I was saying this earlier this week, that if you remember, I think it was last September, October time, Keir Starmer kept getting up, and every time he got up and stood on his hind legs, he was talking about being on a war footing. We must be on a war footing. We must prepare for war.
With a club foot.
And you're kind of going, all right, fine, okay. What are you doing exactly? Nothing. You spend a lot of time with the military guys. I know that I've seen you on your just social media accounts that you're in and out of military clubs. You're in and out of places where veterans hang out. What do they say about the state of our defences?
Well, they're despondent. I've been very lucky to go up to Brize Norton. I was flying on one of these air fueling things with the RAF. I've been on the Royal Navy frigate recently. They are despondent about the state of the military. As I say, there's a £28 billion black hole. These are guys who are being paid a pittance to defend King and country now.
Yeah.
And the fact that they are so derided by the military, by a government that actually doesn't like the military, finds it all quite distasteful, actually, and quite too right-wing.
Right.
What is the incentive to actually fight and die for your country? Well, not only are you paid little, but you're given inadequate material to do it. And it's humiliating as well. Joining we want the best and the brightest. Be the best was the motto of the army.
Yes.
Be the best and we'll give you our worst should be the new motto for it. It's really indefensible. As I say, 28 billion black hole. But the reality is now, our enemies around the world see Starmer as an ideological ally. They see a man who's constrained by international law, but actually who supports all this far-left ideology of post-colonialism, decolonization. He's appointed Lord Hermer, a man who was openly advising the Caribbean on reparations from Britain. He himself has got David Lammy, a man you have to remind, being Foreign Secretary didn't mean you put foreign interests ahead of British interests. And he himself clearly is somebody who believes that the empire is a bad thing. So you can easily see why the Argentinians say, well, we never thought we could take it up from the Tories, but we can actually open negotiations with Starmer.
Yes.
This is actually the conversations being had in Argentina right now. You look at the Chagos Islands kerfuffle as well, the whole thing. Anyway, the whole thing is just absolutely disgraceful. We actually do still have an empire. We still have overseas territories. And this may be actually the beginning of the end.
But it looks as though the Chagos Islands deal is dead in the water. I was at a party last Thursday with Lord Kempsell, Ross Kempsell, who's done some great work in the House of Lords to try and stop this thing from going through. And everybody who was there, including plenty of people who are Chagosians, who were very, very grateful to him for the work that he's done, was saying, we don't think this is now going to happen. But it's not going to happen because of anything Starmer did. It's not going to happen because it turns out that they didn't do it correctly and that they basically sold off the rights to a foreign, a British, as you say, overseas territory to a foreign nation without actually giving any, any sort of recognition of what the local people want to happen.
The principle of self-determination is something that we've always abided by. That's part of the rule of law, is having people have the right to self-determination, embedded since Woodrow Wilson at the end of World War I. And here you have a so-called human rights lawyer trampling over the rights of individuals to decide who they want. We've given that right to the Falkland Islands. Why can't we give that right to the Chagosian people? This is what's so outrageous. But this is if the Chagos deal collapses, it's in spite of Starmer.
Yes.
It's in spite of what Labour's done. And this is almost like a vigilante move. This is trying to basically steer your government away from doing a disastrous thing. But we've been banging the drum on this for years, actually, and nothing has got through to these guys. That's how you know how ideologically brainwashed they are. That when you've got all these people
bereft,
and you've got
they're almost bereft of any kind of nationality, of any kind of. I don't know if you've ever seen this guy Felipe Sands, who is the Lord Hermer's mate, who was Matrix Chambers. He was the guy who was hired by Mauritius as the government to fight on behalf of Mauritius to get the Chagos Islands to be given over to them. He actually appeared on Radio 4. I know for some reason was listening to Radio 4 randomly, and he came on World at One or something, and he actually said, forget about the legal qualifications or any of the kind of circumstances around this. The deal has been done. An international court has already decided that actually the Chagos Islands should be given back to the people from Mauritius, not the people who actually lived there. And he said, there's no point. And he was so sort of dismissive.
Arrogant
And these are the people who say, we don't believe in borders, we don't believe in anything other than being a citizen of the world, but they're quite happy to sort of talk about a world which doesn't involve anyone having a nationality, and they think that they can sort of carve it up, if you like, and just give it to people because they want to have it. And I find that really quite sickening.
And remember, Philippe Sands is a colleague of Starmer's, who also worked at Matrix Chambers. In fact, he's one of Starmer's best friends. We need to have questions. Lord Hermer...
These are the people he spends his time with, right? Having dinner parties with, discussing how they can carve up the world and basically sell out Britain.
Lord Hermer, another one of Starmer's great friends, first Attorney General never to have held an elected office, parachuted in by his buddy, Keir Starmer. Philippe Sands, the Mauritius agent, also now hugely influential in all this, another buddy of Keir Starmer. We have to call this out for what it is. We have a bunch of international lawyers, little clique,
CRONYISM.
determining the foreign policy of this country.
And I'm
it's worse than cronyism. This is corrupt. We have an oligarchy ruling of unelected people who are determining the future of this country.
And I'm pretty sure, and I don't think we can find it because we don't quite have the resources for it. Pooch is already doing as many octopus-like things as he can do. But, you know, I'm pretty sure there is a quote from Keir Starmer before he got into power where he said, when we get into power, it will be an end to cronyism, right? And it's been nothing but cronyism ever since he got in July of 2024.
Well, it's rampant cronyism, and now he's got rid of the hereditary peers in the House of Lords, the only democratic element. They were the only ones elected to the chamber, and now it's just left full of Labour's cronies, you know, ex-sort of social workers now determining policy on Iran and everything else. But Philippe Stand is wrong. This is not over yet, because the House of Lords hasn't approved this.
And also, the International Court of Justice is not a recognisable court in our country. And the fact that we are told by these... Oh, sorry, I'm not going to swear. By these bloody bozos that, you know, the International Court has told us that we have to behave like this. No, we don't have to pay any attention to the International Court.
This is one of the problems we have in this country is that it's not a problem actually. Historically, we've always believed in the rule of law. We've respected institutions. Unfortunately, the ECHR, the International Court, have been captured by the same progressive woke left think as all of our institutions in this country get captured. So we've got to the point now where we should feel no qualms about disobeying them. You know, they don't have an army, they don't have a police force, they can't enforce any of these judicial decisions. Sovereignty remains the most important thing. We are a sovereign country. You know, Denmark, I've always said you don't even need to leave the ECHR. You just need to reverse the Human Rights Act and the Equalities Act. That's what ties us into the ECHR. We can just ignore it. Denmark has got the most strict policies on illegal asylum. They've been hauled before the ECHR, I think, on 4 occasions, and they've just said, what are you going to do about it? Who, you're going to arrest the Prime Minister?
Who cares?
Who cares?
Exactly.
Why don't we do the same thing? It's about high time we did.
Yes, absolutely right. Let's have a look at Keir Starmer's appalling performance yesterday, because this guy is so stupid, right, that he thinks, I know, I'll do what my advisors have told me to do. Where's the biggest problem in Britain at the moment? Oh, I know, it's Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland, they've got heating oil, and they've got a heating oil problem because it's very expensive and they can't afford to heat their homes. So let me go there and make out that I really, really care about the people of Northern Ireland. He actually went not only to Northern Ireland, but he went to a kindergarten and a nursery school in Northern Ireland to try and make out that he cared about the good people of that part of the world. Have a look at this.
My name is Hilary Benn. I'm the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. It's a great pleasure. Hello. Hello. What's your name? Oh, well, how lovely to meet you. We've been greatly looking forward. I've brought a guest with me. I understand the last time a Secretary of State came here, you got him upstairs painting one of your rooms. So I don't know, Gay, what you have in mind for us this afternoon. I just want to say it's such a pleasure to be here in Lisbon, for us, both of us, to come and see and learn more about the work you're doing. I had a look at your report as we were driving here in the car, and 2 things that your service users said really struck me. One said, at Atlas, all generations learn, support and encourage each other. And the other quote was, without Atlas and the Atlas creche, I wouldn't be the parent I am today. Now,
I mean, here's the thing, right? If you're a child in Northern Ireland, and you have my sympathy, some bloke called Hillary turns up and you go, sorry, isn't that a woman's name? Is it Hillary Clinton? Is it Hillary, from down the road? No, it's Hillary Benn. Oh, okay, Mr. Benn has got a name, a woman's name. And then Keir Starmer, who's standing there with this ridiculous kind of rictus grin on his face, like, in a room full of children.
Looks like he's just taking his meds.
Yeah, I'm not going to make any comment about whether or not that's where he feels most at home. But I just think, how stupid do these politicians think that the public is? Because do they really think that turning up to a place where you look like a stiff, in American terms, is actually going to be good for your opinion polling?
Well, I think the other takeaway from this is normally whenever he has really bad news at home, Keir Starmer has gone on a plane somewhere international, because he's always been good on the international stage. Right. I'm the Trump whisperer. That doesn't work any longer. No. So now he's burned all his bridges globally.
He can go to Northern Ireland.
He's a laughing stock. So I still have to go over the water somewhere. So I'm going to go to Northern Ireland. Right. That's my overseas trip.
Yeah, his overseas trip is now available by ferry as opposed to plane. I fail to see how people who are advising him think that that's a good look, because it's just embarrassing, isn't it?
It's hugely embarrassing, but also people can see what it is. He is trying to escape the news stories.
Yeah.
This man, as Kemi Badenoch said, he lied and lied and lied. He has put the Mandelson appointment on his shoulders.
Yes.
He said, I made a mistake. But with all of the released documents, nothing actually involves the actual conversation.
No.
He said that he was assured by Mandelson, but we haven't seen the questions he's asked.
No.
We haven't seen Mandelson's responses.
Right.
That's all we really care about. You can actually forget about everything else. That's actually the key thing.
Well, one of the questions I was asking this morning, and Pooch and I were having a conversation this morning, and we're going to talk to Ben Habib in a minute about it, who's from Advance UK, of course. It's all very well for the sort of so-called journalists of this country to go, Keir Starmer has admitted that he made a mistake, and then they play the clip. Yeah, I was wrong. It was totally my responsibility. I take responsibility for getting it wrong. But nobody's saying, well, what do you think you got wrong? That's what I want to know. Let him explain, please, how he thinks he got it wrong, why he thinks it's now okay to just go, I got it wrong, and how he can quantify exactly how badly he got it wrong. Because that, to me, is the question. It's not just about him holding his hands up and going, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. Can we move on now? No, we can't bloody well move on because you are a cretin and you're a complete moron and you should never have ever appointed Peter Mandelson, who was a known, I'm not going to say the word nonce, but, I could, who was a known cretin, awful character, ghastly individual, homosexualist, man who literally went to parties that you would be frightened to go anywhere near. And we made him the most powerful man in the Western world as the US ambassador.
How do you really feel, Mike? Don't hold back.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. And then, but the thing is, this is still a cover-up. It's still underway. This is what I'm saying. He hasn't released this evidence. But also, who was Starmer's right-hand man? It was actually the person who was being mentored by Mandelson.
Yeah.
Morgan McSweeney, the chief of staff, he was the one pushing Mandelson the whole time. He's got his hands all over this, even more than Starmer. And do you know what? In all the documents that were released, not a single WhatsApp message, not a single email, not one piece of paper with Morgan McSweeney's views on this.
Yes.
And you know that appointment was all being channeled by Starmer and McSweeney discussion.
Yes.
The fact we don't have any of that stinks to high heaven, and this is still, and they always say the cover-up's worse than the actual thing. Well, actually, this is a pretty bad scandal, so actually that's really the worst thing of all. But the cover-up is equally terrible, particularly now we know that actually Keir Starmer is so unsuitable to be Prime Minister. This is a resigning issue. He was actually given, because the civil service do this, he was given a due diligence report on Mandelson. They actually did their job for once, and they said there's a high risk of reputational damage to the government and to you. He ignored it. They warned him about his links to China. He had been pushing pro-China lines in America. He had been calling Trump terrible things. Also his links to Russia. So apart from everything else with Epstein, Russia links, China links, and despite all of that, Keir Starmer made the decision with his bad judgment to overrule this due diligence report. So everything that comes is fully on his shoulder. He has to take full blame for it, and he has to resign.
Exactly right. And yet he'll wake up this morning in Downing Street, no doubt watching this show. I hope he is anyway. And it's still there. Let's talk to Ben Habib, leader of Advance UK. Because, Ben, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning,
I find
Mike.
it absolutely extraordinary, as Rafe has just explained, and as we have just mapped out. How on earth is Keir Starmer still in Downing Street? How on earth does he think that people have not seen through him? How on earth does he think that he still has the right to sit there, having admitted that it was all down to him that he hired this bloke?
Well, I think you've said it all. In the face of advice to the contrary, he insisted on hiring Mandelson. The Cabinet Office warned him against him. Senior advisors to the government, like Jonathan Powell, who's a very seasoned individual, has had 30 years of diplomatic experience, advised him against it. They said it was a disaster in the making. It would cause reputational damage. He said that the Prime Minister himself would end up having to take responsibility for it. That was part of the advice. I don't know if you saw that line where Jonathan Powell said the Prime Minister is going to have to take responsibility for this if it goes wrong, and he still went ahead and did it. But I think the question here goes beyond, in my mind, it goes beyond competence. It goes to a sickness in government which thinks it can do whatever the hell it wants, whenever it wants to. And no matter how egregious the steps being taken. So Starmer knew the connection between Mandelson and Epstein. He knew Epstein was a paedophile. That didn't seem to worry him at all. And now he looks all contrite and hurt when he's told that, oh, well, actually, Mandelson had a relationship with this paedophile, as if that was a revelation to him now. And, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. They knew all about this at the time. They don't seem to care about paedophilia. They don't seem to care about corruption. They seem to only really give a damn once once their hand is found in the cookie jar, and it's not good enough. And the other question that I have in my mind, and perhaps you and Rafe have already discussed this, is, how much other corruption is there of this nature within the appointments that take place? How much chumocracy really does go on? It's from the outside, it appears to be quite a lot. But if you're prepared to appoint someone like Mandelson, someone who was twice effectively sacked by the government, wrongly ennobled, you have all the evidence, you ignore it, you appointed an ambassador. How many members of the House of Lords, how many Knights of the Realm, how many senior positions in the civil service have been handed to people who should not have those jobs? We must have an absolute sickness at the heart of our government.
Yes, absolutely right. And yet, and I blame the media in large part for this, Ben, we don't ask the right questions. And when I say we, I mean very loosely the word we, because I like to think that I do ask the right questions. But the idea that, Keir Starmer sort of stands up in front of people like Beth Rigby and goes, I take full responsibility for this. And nobody says, well, what exactly do you think you got wrong? What exactly do you think you should not have done? And why are you still standing here without resigning your job? And I think that is the question that we need to put to the Prime Minister.
Yeah. And of course, Mike, it's not the first time he stands there looking all contrite, having made an absolute disastrous decision. I said this yesterday. I think he's gaslighting us, the British people. When he apologises, he's actually gaslighting us. We all know that he knew, and he knows that we know that he knew. And yet he puts on this impression. I sound like a bit like Donald Rumsfeld there for a second. But he puts on this contrite expression. For example, he did this with President Trump when he said we've still got free speech in the United Kingdom. Well, just a couple of days ago, Steve Reed came out with this anti-Muslimness law,
my God.
which absolutely flies in the face of free speech. He talks about how we're going to institute border control. Well, he knows exactly that there'll be zero border control. He talks about a one in, one out policy, which is a lie. It's a one in, it's one out, two in policy. There's always one coming in.
If you're
just
lucky.
lying and if you're lucky. What I mean is they'll take anything that they've done wrong and gaslight the British people into accepting it.
Yes.
And it's their modus operandi. And I don't know where this ends. The sad thing is, even if Starmer resigns, you're not going to get rid of the Labour government. You're just going to get another moron as Prime Minister. It's as simple as that, won't you? You replace one moron, one lying moron with another.
Yeah, and that is a terrible, terrible sort of place that we have found ourselves in. Rafe, I mean, you'll have, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, later, but you'll have seen the story earlier on in the week where Steve Reed gets up in the Houses of Parliament, and Ben was quite vocal about this earlier in the week, where he says, we don't want to upset Muslims. Oh, really? Okay, then. How's that going to work? Well, broadcasters, schools, universities, NHS, various different public sector organisations will have to be very careful about not obsessing Muslims by saying anything which is anti-Muslim. And I'm going, what does that even mean? I don't even know, right? I reserve the right to take the mickey out of any deity that you might wish to throw at me. If I decide to make fun of Buddha, I'm going to do it. I can't believe it's not Buddha. Arrest me, right? I believe that, I can take the mickey out of Muhammad. I don't really care. I don't believe that there's a God in the sky that's watching over me. He certainly isn't watching over me when I get parking fines every bleeding day that I park. I don't care. I don't wish to be told by the government what I can say to people that might upset them. And yet, here we are.
It's absolutely wretched. And for one element, Rafe and I were discussing this the other day on a programme when we were jointly jointly on a panel. But we get one section of the public being protected to the point that the other part, the majority part of the public, are effectively having their rights set aside. It's absurd. It flies in the face of free speech. It flies in the face of democracy. And even though people don't seem to care about it, it also is, in my mind, again, the last building block of the foundation for the replacement of Christianity. It seems to me, I've made that point a few times. If I can just dwell on it for a second, it seems to me people in this country don't mind Christianity being set aside. And what I would say to people who don't hold Christianity dear to themselves is, even if you're not an evangelical Christian, a born-again Christian that absolutely banging the drum for Christianity, what you must recognize is the gentle, brilliant fabric of society that our patrician form of Christianity created over 1,000 years of evolution. And that is now being set aside. So even if you're not a Christian, you should be extremely concerned about the way our Christian culture and our Christian constitution is now going to be set aside by this anti-Muslimness law. This is not just about Christianity for Christians. This is Christianity for the broader society that we must not allow to be replaced by this muscular, proselytizing, expansive religion, which is so intolerant of all the things we take for, or have taken for granted in the United Kingdom for decades.
Yes, exactly right. And when you have communities in this country, and we've seen video evidence of this, so it's not like we're making it up because we're all mad right-wing nutters, people being told, you can't come in here, this is a Muslim community, this is a Muslim area, you can't come here and talk Christianity, you can't come in here, you have to be, cognizant of what we feel and how upset we might be if you start talking about God and Jesus Christ and all of this. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not the country that I live in, that's not the country I wish to live in, and I don't know how it's got there.
No, absolutely. Look, I mean, I've got absolutely nothing against people who wish to be Muslims. That's fine. And if I were to go to the UAE, unlikely at the moment, but if I were to go to the UAE, I'm perfectly respectful, obviously, of all their customs, culture, religion, their belief systems, etc.
Sure.
And they should equally be respectful of ours when they come to our country. And this is where the government needs to be more forceful. Instead of passing an anti-Muslimness law for fear of upsetting a voter base to which they wish to appeal, they must stand firmly behind what is British, just as the government in the UAE would stand behind their culture.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have any truck with someone turning up and saying, "Oh, hold on a second, I want a church built here, and I want a big crucifix up over there." You just wouldn't get it, would you? We've gone mad in this country, and Starmer, his government, and the kind of ideology they have, which is this sort of globalist, anti-sovereign, anti-British, a Marxist approach to governance, is setting our country aside. It's a complete disaster.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I said this, I was talking to Dr. Gavin Ashenden, who's one of the great brains, I think, of Britain, and a man who we like to talk to a lot here on this show. And I said to him, imagine if we went to Pakistan, and, Ben, you're from Pakistan, which people seem to make a thing of every now and again. They go, well, was Ben Habib from Pakistan? What's he talking about Britain for? If I went to Pakistan and said, right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a church in every single sort of, sector of Islamabad. I'm going to then go to Lahore and I'm going to build a whole bunch of churches. And I'm going to not only build the churches, I'm going to say to you as a Pakistani man and woman that you will have to recognise the church that I've just built. You will have to not do anything to me which makes me feel uncomfortable. You will also have to change the way that you live. You will have to celebrate the Sabbath on a Sunday instead of on a Friday.
No halal, no more halal.
And you will no longer have halal meat. I will be destroying and killing sheep and lambs and cows the way I want, and you're going to have to eat like that. And people would go, have you gone mad? The Pakistani community would go, what the hell are you doing? Get the hell out of here. Except we are not only doing that and allowing it to happen here, we're actually inviting it to become even more prevalent. Like, come to the Lake District, open a mosque, build a mosque in the Lake District.
Absolutely.
It's insane.
It's absolutely mad.
It?
It's absolutely mad. And we should all be very, very concerned about what Starmer's up to. He is corrupt to the core. This impression of contrition that he has every time he apologizes for yet another mistake he's made.
Right.
It's a falsity. It's a lie. That he's not contrite.
Yeah,
He
we call
couldn't
it
care
bollocks
less.
here at the Mike Graham show.
It's so wonderful being on YouTube. You don't have any constraints of Ofcom
No.
and all that nonsense.
It's true, but you know, you know, to be serious for a moment, Rafe, I want you to come in on this. Where is the fight back? Where is the kickback? Where is the, you know, I mean, and because obviously you get called a racist, you get called a kind of far right nutter if you want to stand up against this kind of creeping Islamification of Britain. Where does it? Where? How do we fight back? How do we stop it?
Well, the problem we have in this country is we've never had to fight for our identity before.
Yeah.
The Irish have been revolting about this. They've seen such
Yes.
rapid demographic and cultural change. But the Irish have a long history of fighting for their independence,
Yes.
preserving their identity. Who else is very strict on this? The Poles and the Hungarians.
Yeah.
Why? Because they lived under the yoke of communism.
Yeah.
They had to fight for their
Yeah.
identity,
Yeah.
their national soul,
Yeah.
their symbols of their country. We've always been top dog. We were the ones imposing our beliefs elsewhere with the empire and everything else. So this is a new experience for us. And we take all of our freedoms and our rights for granted. We take our culture for granted. We are actually that frog in the ever-increasing boiling pot of water,
We are.
completely oblivious to the significance of what happens.
Yeah.
And my fear is, what will it take for the British people to rise up? We thought it would have been the Lee Rigby. No, it wasn't. We thought it would be the Manchester Arena bombing. No, it wasn't. We thought it would be the Southport murders. No, it wasn't. In fact, when people did try to protest, they were bashed down as being far-right thugs.
Yeah.
My fear is that the English are so reserved. You know, the French always revolt. The French are revolting, as I like to say. Although the English don't, and that's my great fear. It's going to be too late eventually when the English do finally wake up.
Yeah, I know. So what do we do, Ben? What's the answer?
Well, I just want to agree with Rafe. I find the French revolting as well.
The food's nice though, and they got for some rather nice wine. It has to be said. I mean, I'm not having that. I'm not having that kind of racism on this show. It's a disgrace. You know, it's shocking. But what do we do though? Honestly, what you know, ordinary people listening to this are tearing their hair out. They know that there's, you know, the right-wing sort of fight back, reform, advance UK, restore Britain. There's, you know, there is a political answer, perhaps, to all of this. But in terms of just day-to-day kind of existence, what do we do?
Yeah, so we could turn the country around on a sixpence. We could turn the direction of the country around on a sixpence. It would take longer to implement everything, but the direction of travel could be changed overnight. And Advance UK, its first policy that we came out with, I'm not plugging the party, but I think it's an important point. The first policy we came out with, we decided the most important policy that this country needs to address is a policy on our culture. Who are we as a people? What do we believe in, and how do we wish to be? How do we wish to go forward? And if you look at our culture policy, it's, if I may say so, brilliant. It puts at the heart of genuine legislative changes that will restore our Christian constitution, our belief in our national heroes, our reconnect ourselves with our past, and so on and so forth. And I think that's the first necessary step of any incoming pro-British government, is to take legislative steps, not meek-minded, airy-fairy, we'll try and do this and we'll try and improve the education system and stuff. No, legislative steps that will restore our culture as a people, our art, our music, our national heroes, our statues, our great buildings, our history, and so on and so forth, so that we reconnect with being British.
Yes. And I think a lot of people would welcome that, and a lot of people are sort of looking for that, in the sense that they don't know quite how to deal with it, because we are a genuinely sort of polite nation. We are a people who, you know, we don't normally go up to people in the street and go, what are you doing? You know, we're nice to people, and so as a result, we're allowing this to happen around us. And I think people genuinely want to know how they can stop it.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's how you do it. You start with a policy on culture, and then, of course, you get rid of all the international laws and domestic quangos and stuff that prohibit us from doing what's right for the United Kingdom. the ECHR's got to go, the Human Rights Act's got to go, the Equalities Act's got to go, all the progressive discrimination regulations that require us to take the knee to foreign cultures, foreign religions, ideologies, etc. All of them have to go. And then you need a more muscular form of our own belief system. So even though, I'd love Rafe's view on this, it's not traditionally English or British to wear our nationality on our sleeve. I think we've now got to do that much more. We've got to require schools to sing the national anthem, schools to sing hymns, schools to teach Christianity, schools to fly national flag, the Union flag, public sector bodies to fly the national flag. Make sure that we are reinforcing that message all the time. Members of Parliament, people who take office, must swear either on the Bible or a neutral text which recognizes Christianity as our constitutional religion. We can't have MPs swearing on the Quran or other holy books. These are big steps that we can take. Ban halal, absolutely ban halal. Ban cousin marriages, ban all this kind of nonsense that's creeping into British culture that is setting us aside. And, you talk about our being nice. I think Gad Saad calls it suicidal empathy. It's also suicidal apathy. We're doing absolutely nothing to protect ourselves. The barbarian, if you like, is through the gates, and we're welcoming the attack.
Yes. Rafe, would that make a difference if we did all of those things that Ben suggests? We play the national anthem in schools every morning. We make people swear on the Bible. We make people kind of, embrace Britishness as opposed to kind of pushing it away.
All terrific proposals. I've been advocating all of that for years. I've always worn my nationality on my sleeve. When I was 13, my parents said, "What do you want for a birthday?" I asked for a flagpole, and I would raise the Union flag every single day on that flag. But we need to go much further, because that would have been effective 20 years ago on its own.
Yes.
But we need to actually reverse the long march through the institutions. That means putting our own people in there. It's a 25 to 30 year project. The great tragedy is we should be 14 years into that project.
Yes.
We should be halfway there. The Tories put the pedal to the metal of all of this sort of stuff. And we need, most of all, we need to fundamentally change the curriculum in our schools. And we need to change the makeup of our teachers, because when we were at school, there was a slight right-wing imbalance with our teachers, half of whom were beating us up all the time.
Yes.
Now,
I didn't mind that.
90% of our teachers
I
vote
thought
for
the
centre-left
balance was
parties.
perfect.
And 90% of our teachers vote for centre-left parties, and kids learn by osmosis through all of that.
Sure.
So they've been captured. And I've got to say, you've got to start in schools. It's too late to do this in universities. I like to say, if the hair is blue, there's nothing you can do. You've got to get them when they're young. And there's no point changing the curriculum if you've got teachers who don't believe in any of this. Teaching the positives of the British Empire alongside the negatives. Celebrating Britain's role in the abolition of slavery, not just continually wearing a horsehair shirt over all that.
And I make no apology for this. And I was on a bus the other day, and it was a single decker, and there was a great cacophony of noise going on. Everybody was talking, and not anybody on the bus was talking in English. And I thought, and it's not about skin colour. It's some of them were Eastern Europeans, some of them were from Africa, some of them from the Caribbean, whatever. But none of them were speaking. And I was going, sorry, I'm sitting on a bus in my city, which I'm paying quite a lot of money to live in, council tax going through the roof. And I know that some people will say to me, well, you must be a racist then. No, I think it's okay to hear different languages. I've always enjoyed living in capital cities of the world. I lived in New York for a long time. Don't mind it. But, is there any chance, please, possibly, that the people around me might actually speak the language of the country they're living in?
I know. It's absolutely basic. It shows how we've completely given in to multiculturalism and forgotten that actually for a society to be a society, for a people to be settled, there has to be a common culture. And a common culture includes language, a sense of belonging based on our history and how we got to where we are, etc. We must all, now this is an interesting point, in order to settle this country, the people we want in this country, we wish them to identify with being British. We wish them to identify with our history, all the things that I've just mentioned. And yet we do the opposite. We bring people in and we say, we're going to celebrate your culture. We're going to promote your culture.
Right.
We're going to have celebrations for Ramadan. we won't have a celebration for Christmas. I mean, we wouldn't want to offend you with celebrating Christmas. Perhaps it hasn't quite got that far, but
Yeah.
it's not a million miles off it,
No.
is it?
No, exactly. I mean, we did Plank of the Week yesterday. We were recording. By the way, can you tell Kevin O'Sullivan to stop doing Plank of the Week? I know that you appear on it. Just tell him it's my property, and if he doesn't stop it, I'm going to come and beat him up. But that's another story. We did it yesterday, where you've got football matches in Britain and the Premier League being stopped in order for Muslim footballers to take a sort of a sip of a rehydration drink because they're fasting for Ramadan. And I'm going, sorry, if you're fasting for Ramadan, either play football or absent yourself and say, look, I can't play football because I'm fasting for Ramadan. Why the hell are we kowtowing to this ridiculous religion, right, which is no more ridiculous than any other religion, but, as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't, people said to me the other day, what are we going to do on Boxing Day? Are we going to stop the game so that everybody can open a box of Quality Street and have a couple of, chocolates? Because that's what we do in the Christian culture. It's insane, isn't it?
That probably would be the Mike Graham way to play footy on Boxing Day.
Yes, have some chocolate.
There wouldn't be much kicking of a ball.
But it's ridiculous, isn't it? And we're all standing, and people are standing around going, oh, it's very good, you're very good. It's very, very, very inclusive. We're helping the Muslim community.
I know, it's madness.
Crap.
And we saw this again with Starmer the other day in the Great Hall at Westminster.
Yeah. With the iftar.
That iftar party.
Yeah.
And to much applause, he said, I'm not going to get involved in Iran. And you could see the palpable pleasure that he got in informing them that he wasn't getting involved in Iran and he was supporting their position. How the hell did our foreign policy now get dictated to us by a minority religious element in the United Kingdom?
Yes.
It's absurd.
It is.
We should be doing what's right on the international stage for our national interest. And let me tell you, whatever people say, whatever public opinion is, the theocracy in Iran is anti-Western. It is fomented trouble in the Middle East for decades.
Right.
It is, if it develops a nuclear weapon, it will use it against us. It'll be one of those countries that has the preparedness to use it. We must remove that theocracy, or at least degrade it to the point where it no longer threatens us. And for Starmer not to be allowing, or initially not to be allowing the Americans to use our air bases, and frankly not to be standing shoulder to shoulder with the Americans, is a complete reversal of 50 years, 60, 70 years of British foreign policy, which has served us so well. And he's done it for a minority in this country. Mind you, having said all of that, if HMS Dragon is representative of our military capability, I'm not sure the Americans would want us anywhere near the battlefield.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think the whole business of our defences was summed up brilliantly by Matt, the cartoonist in the Daily Telegraph, who earlier this week did a cartoon saying, we're sorry that HMS Dragon's not available, but there is a bus replacement service. Because that's kind of, Britain has become a bus replacement service for everything, right? It's just ridiculous. Anyway, listen, Ben, it's been brilliant to see you. Thank you for joining us. You've got to come into the studio one of these days.
Well, you've got to invite me, Mike.
Well, I haven't. I'm inviting you now. Come and see us. We're not a million miles away from where you live, I don't think.
I look forward to that.
We will see you soon. Thank you very much indeed. Ben Habib, the leader of Advance UK. He's absolutely right. We've kowtowed now to such an extent, Rafe, where, as you say, we should be sort of 25 or 15 years into a project which is good, when in fact we're probably 25 years back in the wrong direction, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's so important, and this is one of the things I try to wake people up to, why the next election and the one after could be the last chance we have to save Britain, because 2% of right-wing voters die every year, and they're not being replenished about the young. This is why I say we can't win this war unless we win the battle for young minds. Because we've got the most radically left-wing youth in history. They're not becoming more conservative as they grow older. For the first time in history, people in their 30s are just as left-wing as people in their 20s. There used to be the phrase, if you're not a liberal at 25, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative at 35, you've got no brain. Well, capitalism has failed the youth. They can't get on the housing ladder. They can't get a job with just security. They can't get a pension. Worse living standards than their parents.
Do you think that's why they are continuing to be left-wing then? Because they think there's another answer?
Yeah, because they've been failed. And what did the Tories offer them? Triple lock pensions. Right? Everything was catered to the Blue Rinse Brigade. Nothing was done to actually appeal to the youth.
Yeah.
And they've been indoctrinated with all this far-left ideology in schools and at universities. Aristotle used to say, give me a child of 7 and I'll show you the man. Well, we're indoctrinating them to 21 now.
Our comedians used to say, give me a child of 7, I'll take him into the bath, didn't he? Well, that's another story.
That's where that came from, isn't it?
Exactly. Crikey, I've just discovered gravity. Listen, before we say cheerio to you, Rafe, let me show you this. This will scare the bejesus out of you, I think. This is Hannah Spencer being sworn in to Parliament yesterday.
And to the girls who I saw photos of, who went to school on International Women's Day dressed as Hannah the plumber. In their overalls, spanners and trademark hair. To the 10-year-old boy at Hideout who rock climbed an incredibly high wall with me and who saw me suddenly become very terrified of how far up I was and who said to me, don't ever give up, and if it's scary looking down, then just look at what's in front of you.
Jesus Christ. That is an MP who is going to be claiming, no doubt, and I'm going to be keeping very close tabs, by the way, on her expenses, but she will be claiming a salary in excess of £110,000 a year because they've just had a pay rise to be an MP. She'll probably be claiming at least that again in expenses. So we're talking about a woman like that, probably £250,000 that we will be subsidising her to the tune of.
She's as thick as 2 planks, and we might as well just buy 2 planks. They're much cheaper for everyone. Just stick that up in the green benches. Because it looks like she's already auditioning for another job. It looks like she's auditioning to be on Play School.
Yeah.
Or to replace Jeffrey in Rainbow with all that outfit there. She just needs Zippy next to her, and it'll all be perfect shot.
Well,
but this is the quality and calibre now. We're led by political pygmies.
Right.
And she's not even a pygmy. I don't know what this creature is.
When she came down to Westminster last week, Carla Denyer, who was sitting on the benches next to her there, who's the other Green MP, was wearing purple, and she was wearing that ridiculous... She's always wearing the same outfit, by the way. Unless she's got 55 different versions of the same outfit, she never changes her clothes, which is not a good look.
She's always wearing that outfit.
She's always wearing that same outfit. And somebody said, I don't fancy the look of the new Teletubbies series. Have a look at this. Here we go.
I'd like to thank every Muslim. I was shocked, and that's the truth. That you came out in your thousands to vote in one tiny booth. 1 minute I was...
I like the guy on the right reading the text along with her.
Yeah, that is funny. In fact, Intel lady, who's coming to our live show in May, did a brilliant sort of take on this, where she was interviewed by her own version of Emily Maitlis with this terrible fake tan on, and she just literally made no sense at all. But when they played what she was saying, they did subtitles. We have a look at subtitles in Urdu.
So let's come back to the war that's broken out in Iran, and I would like to know how would the Green Party navigate the war if they were in charge, if they were in government? How would they navigate this very volatile situation? I think if the Green Party were in government during time of war, I think Zach would be absolutely amazing at bringing all sides together and sitting them down and saying,
an Urdu speaker to translate what that actually says as well.
Oh my God, it's so funny. But it's terrifying that, in a way, that she has been elected to represent a fairly significant portion of Manchester. And for the people of Manchester to have sent her to Westminster is really quite shocking. We make fun of it, of course, because we can. But bloody hell, is that what we've become? This is our, the cradle of democracy has now been taken over by these nutters.
Well, speaking of nutters, a large part of her vote, because she pandered to radical Islam. Yeah. I've done a very good monologue, if I do say so myself, on the New Culture Forum channel called Starmer's handed Britain over to the Islamists.
Yes.
Because now he's kowtowing to the Green Party voters as well, because he wants to win them back. But the people that were voting for him are ultimate misogynists. So they voted for a woman like that, Jeffrey from Rainbow, they voted for. Despite the fact that they don't think women should be in politics, they don't even think women should have their faces shown.
They shouldn't even be out of the kitchen.
And they voted for
Get back in the kitchen.
And they voted for a party led by a gay Jew.
Yeah.
So you got to wonder, do they really believe in the Green Party? No, they're using the Green Party in the same way that the Ayatollahs in Iran were using the students in '79. They're laughing at the Green Party, saying, look how idiots, this is suicidal empathy. We're going to use you to achieve more power in this country. And the Green Party is just useful idiots, and they don't realise that they're being used.
How is it that only you and I can see it, but nobody else can? I mean, for heaven's sake, Rafe Hardenbank, brilliant, as ever. Thank you so much for coming in. We've got so much more to do. We're here until, of course, 9:30. We've got Plank of the Week coming up tonight at 7 p.m. We've got Plonk of the Week coming up tomorrow at 7 p.m. as well. I don't know what to say. I'm literally speechless after taking in all of what we've just had going on for the last hour. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
We've now got an even greater treat for you. We've got Marilyn Hawes. Sorry?
The news very quickly.
Oh, do the news. Okay. First,
You were early. No, fine. Sorry.
I don't think we did the news at 1:30 though. We can do it now if you want.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it?
Yeah, to get Rafe out, yeah.
Let's get the news, yeah. So, news with Edward Hughes. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is facing intense pressure over the release of the first Mandelson files, admitting he personally overruled warnings about Lord Peter Mandelson's past links to Jeffrey Epstein before appointing him as US ambassador, prompting resignation calls from opposition leaders, including Kemi Badenoch and even Jeremy Corbyn. Elsewhere, the government has published initial documents on the controversial appointment, highlighting reputational risks that were flagged but ignored. On the economic front, sterling continues to weaken amid a global oil crisis triggered by escalating attacks in the Gulf, with oil prices surging and contributing to market turbulence. Regulators are pressing Meta, TikTok, and other platforms to do more to block children from their services, warning of failures in age enforcement. And in other developments, new cases of blue tongue virus have been confirmed in England, while MPs continue scrutiny of the Post Office Horizon scandal redress scheme. That's your UK headlines roundup. Stay tuned for more updates. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Now, you might have noticed that we still haven't got the moving face of Edward Hughes, but we will get that. We're working on it. As indeed we are working on the clocks.
I'd like to show you something why we haven't got...
What have you got for us, Pooch?
A reason why we haven't got the moving face.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Have a look at this.
All right, go on. This is obviously, can they hear me? This is Pooch. This is basically his job, right? This is what he's... It's so true. I know you're probably thinking, what you've gone mad? No, that's exactly what it looks like. Even from here, I can see it. He's literally spinning the plates. Amazing. Marilyn Hawes, after her fantastic debut on Plank of the Week last week. People, I'll tell you what, Marilyn, you have been the most popular woman ever on Plank of the Week. People were going, it's absolutely brilliant. They particularly liked it when you walked off the set. and the cameras that crashed to the side. You know, it was absolutely brilliant.
I had my jeans on and not just nothing from the waist
down. Thank Christ for that. Do you remember during COVID, there was they used to do those number 10 briefings, you know, and once they listened to Beth Rigby and then Paul Mason and then Robert Peston, you know, about half an hour later, they'd go around the room. And there was a guy from The Guardian who was on Zoom at one point. He got up and he was in his underpants. He stood up to fix his computer and he was wearing underpants. It was brilliant.
It's another Mandelson moment.
I think Mandelson was with him, actually. I can't say too much more. But listen, before we start, I just want to play you this, because this woman, Jess Phillips, is one of the most annoying women in politics, right? Have a look at this. This is her talking about safety for women and girls.
of course I have had conversations with the Prime Minister about this. And actually, they're usually like, what can I do? What can we do to make sure that the progress on violence against women and girls is not derailed by this? And actually, one of the documents that hasn't that doesn't have some of the salacious stuff in it is that the only mention of the victims and violence against women and girls in the documents that were released yesterday is the Prime Minister behind closed doors saying that he's worried that this will derail it, because he does care about it. Now, look, I will hold him to account the same way I will hold anyone to account. And so what we have to see now, in light of this, is the man I know and have known for many years pushing on every single lever to make sure violence against women and girls
Will he still be the
realised.
Prime Minister beyond May?
I imagine, yeah.
And would you be glad that's the case?
Look, there is never, ever... I have never, ever worked with a male politician who is as big an ally and has helped me move the tides of power on violence against women and girls more than Keir Starmer.
Okay.
Like, and look, that doesn't negate this this issue, and I think that he's right to say he made a terrible mistake. But look, I can only speak as I find. He's considerably better than any other Prime Minister I've ever even worked in. Even ones who are sort of famed for being brilliant at this won't have moved the dial as much as Keir Starmer's government does on violence against women and girls.
Sorry, I don't like to use the word bullshit, but I'm going to. Have you ever seen Keir Starmer doing anything to stop violence against women and girls? No, of course not. Jess Phillips is talking absolute cobblers, isn't she?
It's total tosh, absolute tosh. Honestly, the woman shouldn't be in post. She's absolutely dreadful, honestly. I mean, I first have to say, I was laughing so much at your previous items that I had to go read my makeup because I was laughing so much about Jeffrey from Play School, whatever it's called. Absolutely. It's so true. It was so true, those last few minutes. I have literally and I've nearly thrown up listening to Jess Phillips. What a load of tosh. So I've got my boxing gloves on this morning, Mike. I've got my boxing gloves. I'm taking no prisoners over that odious, despicable, creepy little shite, Sadiq Khan.
Oh, he's like, it's like, you know, you have to put the old cross as the sign of the cross up when you talk about Sadiq Khan, you know, and I know that he won't like that because obviously he's not keen on the old sign of the cross. Look, Easter's coming, you know, any chance of a crucifixion?
Can we nail him up there then? Because quite honestly, I mean, it's just dreadful. I mean, I just despair. He's another liar from the Labour Party, isn't he? He goes on about he didn't know about all these exploited girls and people. Was it 9,000 of them in London? Or was he walking around with his blindfolds on when he's probably so short he can't see what's going on, really? I suppose that's the problem.
Yeah, you can't see over the table.
Can't see. He probably sits under the table because he's so tiny. He's like a little dwarf. But, you know, honestly, it's absolutely hideous that he's come out and lied and then made a statement yesterday that he's going to hold the Met Police to account. No, hold yourself to account, pal. You have failed about 9,000 people that we know about. You know, I didn't see it. No, London's the only place that doesn't have rape gangs. What an idiot. He clearly doesn't know how they work. You go round to any of those, how many big mainline railway stations are in London? That's a gift to any of these exploiters. What about the tubes? All about that. One of the worst places is around Westminster.
Well, if he took a trip down to Victoria bus station, which is not a million miles away from where his office is, he would probably see quite a lot of exploitation going on, quite a lot of victimisation going on, and quite a lot of, you know, really, really unfortunate-looking young people, men, boys and girls, who are getting preyed upon by scumbags who know exactly where to find them. Because if I was a scumbag and I was a predator, I would go straight to Victoria Station and go, oh, hello, how are you? I'm 13 years old, I've run away from home. Really? Why don't you come with me? You know, everybody knows where they are.
I know, of course they do. And also, I was on, what was I on yesterday, Talk TV, and I was on GB News about, and this isn't new, this is not new news, that, oh my goodness, the vape shops around Birmingham. Well, hang on a minute, predominantly Birmingham is full of Muslims, and migrants and what have you. And yes, of course, who buys vapes? Youngsters. There's the thing. a sweet shop to kids. And underneath, they found under a counter written, translated from Urdu about, we can have sex with these kids because if they can't pay the vapes, they have to pay us in sex. Well, there's nothing new in that. Get a grip with what is actually going on endemically across this country.
Yes.
It is hideous, barbaric, medieval on an industrial scale. And from the top down, the Labour mayors, the Labour councillors, and don't tell me that he's done anything, because it's not just violence against women and girls, as you rightly say, Mike, it's the boys as well.
Yeah.
He's just an embarrassment. He shouldn't be in post any more than Starmer should be. No, never hear Keir.
No, exactly right. And I mean, the idea that he is still here, Keir, is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, after all of the stuff that's happened, topped off this week by his acknowledgement that it was his fault that Peter Mandelson was given the job, even though he's previously said, he lied to me. I didn't know he was a scumbag. I didn't know he was a paedophile enabler. I didn't know that he was a friend of a paedophile. Well, yeah, actually, you did. You did know that. He's now admitted that he did. How the hell is he still in post, as they say?
Well, anyone that had a moral compass, which he doesn't have, any more than Jess Phillips or any other of the hideous people. Shamana Mahmood was my other plank of the week. She's another one. Right. I mean, they're just not fit for purpose.
Yeah. What a great job she's doing stopping the boats.
All the money we're paying the French, and they stopped one boat. My goodness,
I know.
Because they can't get their feet wet. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I mean, I just despair. I honestly do. I mean, if he had a moral compass, any conscience, anything about him, he would resign because he'd been found out lying. I mean, he's not credible. What does this look like on the global stage?
I think somebody's just sent a very funny message there, which I have to say is possibly misogynistic, but can we have it again? I'm having a fiver on Jess Phillips in the 3:45 at Cheltenham. Nay, 1,000 times nay. Listen, we can get away with it here on YouTube though, because nobody cares. But listen, but how can we have so useless a government, so hopeless a team of leaders supposedly, who just cannot do anything but lead us into the bleeding, down into the gutter? It's awful, isn't it?
Well, it is dreadful, but he's a globalist, isn't he? He's, as I said before, he's a communist. He wants a caliphate across England. That's what he wants. He wants the votes. He wants the power. So he's creeping up the backsides of the Muslims. I mean, he really is. And they can get away with murder, and they are, because the judges aren't, they're equally woke, aren't they? I mean, and again, I tell you what, there was again two-tier policing again, or whatever, two-tier courts. Some judge put a man in prison for 20 months because he wrote a social media post that was perceived to be hate crime, just like Lucy Connolly, yeah? Meanwhile, another judge, who is a Muslim judge, there was a 14-year-old girl that some Muslim had raped. This is in England, right? And this judge accused the girl of basically being provocative because she had some of her hair under her, whatever you call it, big scarf thing, that was sort of emanating, and therefore she deserved it. And he got off. He shouldn't be.
He got off.
Judges like that should be kicked into the long grass.
Yeah, I know. And that's in this country, right? And that is the problem, isn't it? And then we go, it's his cultural upbringing. I couldn't give a stuff,
I couldn't give monkeys.
Throw away the key.
I mean, and somehow they were going to ban a march in London and all of that. I mean, hate crime. Look what goes on in the mosques. Look at some of the imams that are actually preaching about, what they can do to white girls and why white girls are the scum of the earth and all of that. They should be exited. But do what's the name is in the Italian Prime Minister, right?
Oh, Giorgia Meloni, yeah, she's great.
Off you go. Off ski, bye.
Nice looking woman as well, and I don't mind saying that for all red-blooded males out there. She's actually an attractive politician. There's not many of them about, makes Jess Phillips look like a horse. Sorry.
Jess Phillips is. You don't think she's a goer?
Now listen, 3:45 at Haydock. Jess, the thing is, right, it's Mother's Day coming up on Sunday. Now, I you wouldn't want to get... I'm reading that out.
The flowers. I have 4 of the little darlings.
Have you? Are they going to be coming round on Sunday?
No, they're taking me out.
Because you've
They've all
told
got-
us before that in your xenophobic village that you live in,
I know.
your kids are all woke, right?
Yeah. I think I've negated my invite if they ever tune into the Mike Graham show and see me.
Yeah, they'll be ashamed. But do any of them still live with you? We've got a.
No.
They're all moved away. This is the poll. The poll today is who has got the best mother, right? Is it Eugenie and Beatrice, who are of course the daughters of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Fergie? We got Brooklyn Beckham. We got Archie and Lilibet from the horrendous, ghastly, horrible. Harry and Meghan. Harry! And then we got Big Mike's kids. And some people have said, is that you? Or is it Barack Obama's wife you're talking about? So, anyway, apparently Big Mike's kids are winning. What are you doing for Mother's Day?
Me? I have no idea. Well, they have to talk to me because I'm being asked to babysit on Saturday night, so they've got to be pleasant to me.
Oh, okay. So there'll be some Mother's Day action. Will there'll be some of them will be there then?
Oh yeah, one of them lives in Bermuda, so that she won't be there. But hopefully she'll send a bottle of something or other to Mummy.
Yeah.
That'll be nice.
Very nice. Yeah, I've got my two youngest. The one who's in Manchester is coming down to see his mother on Sunday, so I'm not sure. I don't think I'm going to see him though. I might because I'm going to leave before he gets there, and then the other one will be there as well. So she'll be all right. But it is mad, isn't it? The whole kind of there's loads of Jess Phillips jokes coming in, by the way. It is mad, isn't it, though, that being a mother, I think, is one of the most underrated and most unrewarded jobs that anybody can have. And to be serious for a minute, let's say this, because I think this government and many governments have never understood parenting. They've never understood that people have families and they need money. They need to not be taxed. They need to be looked after. They need to actually be, properly recognised as doing a really, really great job raising the children. The adults of the future, if you like.
Exactly. It's the hardest job you'll ever do.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I had 4, I lost 4. So and my last batch that I
That was
had
a bit careless of you. Sorry, just kidding.
was twins. So I had 4 children under 5.
Wow.
And it was really hard work. I look back now and I realise actually it was absolute chaos. It was actually really funny, and they are my absolute joy. And I, however hard it was, the more you put in, the more you get back later on. It is an absolute job of complete self-sacrifice. I actually like teenagers. I think they're quite funny, and I think too many parents take them too seriously. So I would save the bombs for when it really mattered. If any of them ever lied to me, oh my goodness me, they were in absolutely deep shite because I can't stand lies. I actually took my daughter's pony away from her, sold the pony because she was lying. She was hanging around a couple of young lads that were drug dealers, and she was lying.
Right.
So she was only 14, so bye-bye, Polly, off you go to another horse farm. She's never forgotten it.
It's brilliant. Yeah, but that's what you've got to do, right? As a proper mother, you've got to do it. Listen, Marilyn, as ever, brilliant to see you. We've got a couple of super chats coming in. Somebody said they'd love to have a long lunch with you, which sounds quite dangerous, actually. This super chat from, Alessandro. Marilyn, the kind of girl you'd love a long lunch with. I think that's true. Thank you very much indeed. One from Laura Jane. And this show is brilliant. Somebody else, I think, sent one in saying, I'm laughing so much I forgot to order breakfast.
Yes.
But listen, brilliant to see you. Have a lovely Mother's Day. Enjoy it.
Have a lovely one.
Oh, here we go. Marilyn was an absolute hoot on last week's plank. If you haven't seen it, it's one of the best ever.
Yeah, well worth a while.
People are actually still watching it now, a week later, because it was that funny. Brilliant. Listen, Marilyn.
Coming down for Plonk of the week as well. So
No, you must do. Yeah, no, you've got to do it. And you might want to book yourself into a hotel, though, because when we did it yesterday, and by the time we'd finished, none of us could walk very straight. And I had to go out for dinner later with Donald as well, which ended up... We were supposed to be going out for a cheap meal, right? I ended up paying because we ended up co-opting a few other people. I ended up 400 quid. So, it wasn't a very cheap night out. Anyway, listen, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
for having me on. Thank you,
Marilyn Hawes, brilliant. Also, I should give an honourable mention to Charlotte's mother. Charlotte, of course, of this parish, who sets up all of the brilliant guests that we have, including Marilyn Hawes. Maybe you could wish my mum Sharon a happy Mother's Day for Sunday. Sharon, you are absolutely to be given much respect for raising a wonderful woman by the name of Charlotte, who helps us with all the things that we do here, and we're very grateful to her for what she does. So well done to you for bringing her to us into the world. Mother's Day coming up. Sorry. Can we use Jess Phillips' teeth to replace the missing pieces at Stonehenge? Says Dark Spark. And this one, Jess Phillips should just ask Polanski what dentist he uses. Wasn't there another one about how she lives in a place called The Stables? I mean, I know that, keep him coming, yeah. I know that there will be those out there who think it's misogynistic to have a go at a woman. And of course, the Labourites say this all the time. You're just having a go at her because she's a woman. No, I'm having a go at her because she's a complete and utter hypocrite and crank and useless individual. It's nothing, she could be a bloke. She could have a cock. Sorry.
You take the mickey out of Polanski?
We take the mickey out of Polanski's teeth. Why can't we take the mickey out of Jess Phillips' teeth? It's not misogynistic to do that. If you've got teeth like that, you should be prepared to have the mickey taken out of you. Simple as that, really, isn't it? Who have we got now?
Alan Mendoza's here.
Alan Mendoza's here, is he? Crikey, great. Oh. Alan. Maybe he's disappeared. Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society is here. Alan, very good morning to you, sir.
Hello, Mike.
Good to see you. We're all having a bit of a laugh at Jess Phillips' expense, which I know is not entirely dignified, but it's quite good fun, to be honest. And partially actually important in terms of the way that this government has been operating, because she epitomises to me the kind of two-faced hypocrisy of this Labour administration, where you've got somebody like Keir Starmer who thinks it's okay to hold his hands up and go, oh, it was my mistake. It was my responsibility. I shouldn't have hired Peter Mandelson to be ambassador to the United States of America. And then he thinks he can just draw a line under it and that's the end of that. Well, I'm sorry, Prime Minister, that's not the end of that. And the thing that I find extraordinary is that politicians are no longer questioned by journalists properly. If I was standing in front of Keir Starmer, which is why they won't never let me ever do it, I would say, sorry, Prime Minister, what exactly do you think you got wrong? Why do you think you got it wrong? And what have you learned as a lesson from what you got wrong? Because everybody else knew that Peter Mandelson was unfit for the job, including all of your advisors, including your National Security Chief, Jonathan Powell, including everybody in your cabinet, including everybody on your backbenches. And yet, you still appointed him. And now you think it's okay just to say sorry.
Well, exactly. I mean, the idea that having made this mess and having, in fact, not even vetted him properly. We now learn this morning that he allowed two of Mandelson's mates to vet him rather than, kind of any independent sort of person, which is extraordinary if you think about it. When you've been warned already there's some problems here, you got a report, you were told that, that there are some things that need investigating, and then you depute it to friends of his. I mean, this seems to an utterly ridiculous moment. I think the greatest moment of danger is going to come for the Prime Minister when the WhatsApp conversations get revealed. That clearly is going to be a moment of, I think there'll be resignations, because there'll be things in those WhatsApps that were never meant for publication, but are going to be very damaging for the government. And, we know that's coming. He knows that's coming. So we'll have to see who's going to get caught up in the net and who's going to have to resign.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, that is the problem, isn't it? That we've got here with our kind of, long-range vision, if you like. We can all see what's going on. And the sense now is that the government is actually covering it up in hoping that it won't come out. Because that's, the sense is that that's how they're operating. It's not as if they don't know. It's not as if they didn't know. It's not as if they're not expecting this. They are expecting it, and they know it's not going to be good. But they're kind of sitting there with their fingers crossed like this, going, I hope that I hope that WhatsApp that I sent, back in June of last year doesn't come out. You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of pathetic.
Well, this is the standard point. I mean, if you go back to Mandelson himself, Mandelson clearly, thought the same thing. His view was, well, all this stuff about Epstein's going to blow over, nobody's going to care. I'll ride it out, etc., etc. The tendency is always, is it not, Mike, for a politician to think that they'll get away with it. That's the whole point. And actually, in many cases, they probably do get away with it. I mean, we know the cases that get found out, but there are probably many cases that don't get found out. So, it's a bit of a roulette. They're putting all their money on red. And if black turns out, then they're going to go down in flames, and they know it.
Yeah. And do you think that is, and I mean, I suppose it's a $64,000 question. Do you think that's part of the attraction of being a politician? That there are certain, in sort of what you might call personality types who are attracted to doing that kind of job, and they kind of quite like living on the edge. They kind of quite like being, because it's the only explanation for me as to how they get involved in some of the stuff they get involved in. And you think, how stupid are you? How really, really stupid are you? And how ridiculous do you think you are by writing some of this stuff down, which could be later, published, and you'll be made to look utterly ridiculous. But it's almost as though they kind of know that, and yet they take the risk.
Well, it's an interesting point, and I'm no psychologist, so I can't say whether sort of the people who have been caught out here are in fact addicted to risk. But I think it's more probably something else, which is just the feeling that nobody's going to read these things. I don't think they go, I know someone's going to read this at some point, therefore I'm going to do it. I don't even think they think at some point somebody might read it. I think the general theory is, look, they're not going to read it, I'm going to do it, etc., etc. And that you can see that behaviour in other cases. It's, for example, someone like Boris and co during the COVID, the party season that was going on there. I mean, I don't think they thought ever that this would ever be found out. I thought they, that their view was simply, we're doing this, we can rationalise it in our head somewhere. That's the key thing, of course. I've got an excuse for it, and I'm doing it. And I think that's probably, the more likely outcome, just a feeling we'll never get caught.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk about international matters. You are a man who has studied lots and lots of different countries and their sort of policies. Iran is a place that you know well, and you talk about, we've talked about it many times before. Papers this morning talking about conversations that Donald Trump's having with Putin, the possibility that Putin could kind of intercede, if you like, and try and bring peace to the deal. What do you make of all that? Is it all a bit sort of smoke and mirrors?
Well, I don't think it's deeply disturbing if that's the case. I mean, as we know from yesterday, Russia's hand was definitely behind the attacks on the British bases in Iraq. We know the Russians have been giving the Iranians intelligence. We know that bits of Russian kit are part of what the Iranians are using. Any attempt to bring Putin in will be ultimately doomed to failure, and all you'll get is some kind of deal that benefits Putin ultimately. So it seems strange that also the US president would seek to want to involve him in this. I mean, Putin's tied up in Ukraine right now because of his own mistakes. We know that when Putin in the past intervened in the Middle East, for example, in Syria, it wasn't for our benefit. Right. So why? I think he should be kept as far away from all of this as possible.
So what do you make of the Trump-Putin kind of axis, if you like? Because clearly Trump talks to Putin more than any other prime minister or president of the United States has ever done. Is that something that you would say is unwise, or is it something that you would say is something that we should all think about doing, in the sense that it sort of safeguards parts of the world?
Well, it doesn't. The problem is it doesn't safeguard parts of the world. The issue is that all this talking to Putin has occurred with the backdrop of a continued war in Ukraine and other, sort of incursions that are not in the West's favour. So, look, if talking leads somewhere, for example, if talking were genuinely to lead to a peace which saw Ukraine come out of this war with its honour intact and with much of its territory still intact, then that's one thing. But if all the talking is doing is providing a cover for more bad behaviour, then it's difficult to understand what exactly is the purpose of the talking. Yeah. And equally, as I've stated in the past, Putin's interventions in other parts of the world have been wholly deleterious to the West. So again, you can't point to one thing that Putin has done that has led to, if you like, a cessation of hostilities, as opposed to increasing tensions, increasing divisions, and making our lives more difficult. So history, and indeed, the current situation, tells us he really isn't somebody worth talking to.
Okay. So where does the Iranian story go in the next, say, 2 weeks? I mean, does the new Ayatollah... I mean, I read a story yesterday morning, which I haven't seen repeated, so I don't know if it's true, that the new Ayatollah is actually in a coma, and he's in a very, very bad way. And sort of militarily, he's denuded. He doesn't really have much power anymore. But, you know, overnight, again, we see more attacks on the Middle East and more attacks on the UAE and all of that. So how do you see it sort of panning out?
Well, I think the regime is in one mind. Its mindset is it's going to resist and it's going to try and win this war. And in a sense, it doesn't matter who the figurehead at the top is. Right now, I think that's a general feeling across, at least the most hardline elements who are clearly in charge of the regime. And they're going to push this going forward. Whether the supreme leader is alive or not, or in a coma or not, your guess is as good as mine on that. He's not been seen. There's probably a good reason for that. I think he realizes the moment he is seen, he'll be probably taken out by an American or Israeli strike. But he might very well be ill. The reports were that he was seriously injured in the attack that killed his father. So we have to wonder who's actually in charge. And I think the conclusion is simply that they are trying to extend this conflict for as long as possible and cause as much damage because they have one goal in this, which is getting out of the conflict with the regime still somehow clinging on to power in Iran. And that's going to be the interesting point. Is that where the Americans are willing to leave it or not? That's the question we really need to know the answer to.
Right. And in terms of Britain's involvement, which has been pitiful, to be honest, and embarrassing, HMS Dragon somewhere near Luxembourg now or something, on its way to Cyprus. For heaven's sake, we're going to be talking to Hugh Andre in a minute, who's just turned up. That doesn't sound right, does it? Hugh, very good morning to you. I don't mean he's just turned up. I mean, he's going to be talking to us about We Served and the armed forces and all that. But, the idea that we've got no navy to speak of at all. We've got one ship which could be sent to patrol Cyprus. Even the French have done better than we have. I mean, it's bloody awful, isn't it?
Well, it's particularly shameful. The French have obviously beaten us to the punch here. But the reality is that this has laid bare the problems of British defence.
Yeah.
This is, the problems that have been built up over, decades now of cuts to the military, paring services to the bone, trying to, kind of do as much as possible on as little as possible. And it doesn't work. Ultimately, there comes a point where you just don't have the kit anymore to do, to mount a bare defense of your own people and your own bases. And that's where we're at the moment. We're at a place where, as you said, ships are still getting into place, despite, Mike, the government being told in advance that there was going to be action in the Middle East and that they could, of course, have moved assets into the area, and they didn't do so.
No, I know. Absolutely awful. Alan, listen, great to talk to you, as ever. Alan Mendoza from the Henry Jackson Society, also with Reform as well, talking about a great many things, including the defence of the realm, which you would like to think is quite an important thing, which nobody in government seems to think is an important thing. Alan, thanks very much indeed. As I say, we're going to be speaking very soon to Hugh Andre from We Served, former Armed Forces representative, of course, a man who's now set up this incredibly brilliant organisation called We Served, which is for veterans who are out of the army, out of the navy, out of the air force, trying to make their way in society. Steve Wall is going to be joining you as well. We'll be finding out what that's all about. Can I just say, because I don't think we mentioned this, Pooch, earlier, have you seen this story in the front page of the Times about 3D printers? I don't understand 3D printers, right? I don't pretend to be in any way culturally significant here. I don't understand 3D printers, okay, if you don't mind me saying so. It says here, printed chocolate and mashed potato may be part of our future diet, according to Britain's food safety watchdog. A 3D printing technology uses edible links to build food layers by layer, creating customised shapes, textures and nutritional profiles. I mean, I'm going to ask you, Pooch, even though you're in the distance there, would you eat something that was made on a printer?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean, yes?
Well, I drink something.
Would you? Well, all right. So, could you make a 3D bottle of wine, and would you then drink it?
No. Definitely not.
No.
Definitely not.
Would you drink a 3D pint of beer that was created?
No, I wouldn't trust it.
But you would eat
No,
some chocolate.
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't go near it.
No, I'm amazed at this, right? Because this history blows my mind. It boggles my mind. I'm going. So what? I'm gonna do this, right? Here's my iPad. I'm gonna go print, and over there's a printing machine which is going to produce a hamburger, which I'm apparently then going to eat. I'm sorry, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not going to do it. Frankenstein food, says Disgruntled. Yeah, quite right. What are we doing now?
Ben Pyle, waiting.
Ben Pyle. Okay, Ben. He's a man that knows about the future. I'm going to ask him. Ben, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. Yeah, I do. I have a 3D printer, but I haven't put any mashed potato in it.
Have you got a 3D? How does it work? How does a 3D printer work, though? What's it all about? Because people go, I can make a house, I can make a car, I can make a what's going on?
I haven't made a house. No, you can make very small plastic models.
I don't want any small plastic models. I don't want one.
Yeah.
Why have you got a 3D printer? What's it for?
Oh well, if you make parts for machines or tools, or if you want a little statue, you can make little statues of yourself.
But I don't have a machine that I need to make a part for. What I've seen in America, people make 3D guns. They make guns and then kill people with them.
They make They make the sort of handles for guns. You can't actually make the business end of a gun.
Okay.
You can just make gun holders, and you
can
can
make bullets as well.
I don't think they'd work. No, I think they'd
I know this is going to sound mad. I just don't understand it. Is it because I'm sort of antediluvian, stupid Neanderthal?
No, I don't think many people need them. I think they went through a lot of hype. And it was it's like having a china on your desktop. Whereas you can make some tat. You can make some rubbish.
Right.
I've made some useful things, but I'm into that sort of thing.
Right.
If you're not into that sort of thing, then why would you have it?
Yeah, it's like I once knew a friend of mine when the 80s was sort of the crazy decade, right? And I was living in America, and this guy bought a big house. He worked on Wall Street, and he was a sort of master of the universe type. And he bought this big house in Connecticut. When he built a house in Connecticut, actually, he bought this plot of land, built a house, and I went to see him when he finally got the house built. And he said, "You know what's great?" He said, "I've created this entire music system." He's like, you go into every different room and there's a different, you can play different music in every room you're in. And he had little, he had controls, terminals everywhere. I said, yeah, but you can only be in one room at a time, can't you? And he went, eh? I said, well, why have you got like music in every different room? You can only be in one room.
Yeah.
And he went, oh, I see what you mean. He said, I've spent like $10,000 on this. And I went, well, you're an idiot.
It's a bit of a gimmick.
Yeah.
It is, and I find the thing with the streaming, it's not. I used to like going to buy a CD, and then you've got a CD, and then you can look at the CD, and then you can go, well, it's not this. When you're doom scrolling, you've almost already decided you don't know what you want to listen to. And,
right. I mean, what the problem now is that people actually can't even get to the end of a song because their attention span is so bad that they're going, well, I've had enough of that. Bang. Go to the next song.
Maybe we could 3D print the government and just hook them up to
a
an
3D
AI.
printed government would be better than the one we got now, right?
Yeah,
you can 3D printed Ed Miliband, right?
It sort of just opens its mouth and...
He's still, by the way, ranting on, and he was this week, saying how much we're going to save by sticking with his plan. I mean, have you ever seen or heard a more idiotic person in charge of our, climate change / energy?
Maybe he's already been 3D printed. I don't, and 3D printed not out of mashed potato, but bullshit. If I may say that on your channel,
you may,
because there's. I mean, we talked about him last time, and I think there's some pathology there. I think it's either some psychiatric medicine or some misguided psychotherapy, because someone's told him that he was right and that 40 million voters were wrong when they decided not to elect him. But what he's saying now is based on what the Climate Change Committee has told him.
Right.
Now there's, and I don't know what the collective noun is for pathological liars, but there's a whole batch of them in this institution, in this organization, the Climate Change Committee, that was formed out of the Climate Change Act. And so now basically what it means is that Parliament doesn't really make any decisions. It just defers all of its thinking, such as it is, to the Climate Change Committee. And I've met these people. They are awful. They make Miliband look like a charming genius,
But this is the problem, isn't it? That despite what we now know, which is that, you know, the price of gas has gone so high that we're not going to be able to afford it. The fact is that we don't have reserves of it for more than 2 days. We have no control over the price of heating oil. We have no control over the price of anything that we are using to keep ourselves warm. And yet, all of the sort of the nutters like Miliband, who still want to go on and on and on about what we should be doing about climate change, haven't changed their mind.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, in the face of all of these problems, and I was thinking about that this morning. We've had, you know, as soon as the Climate Change Act was passed, or as it was being discussed, there was a global financial crash. Then we had the years of austerity through the alleged austerity through the 2010s. Then we had COVID and the lockdowns. And now we have this. We have had we're in the middle of the second major war in the world. We've got Ukraine, and now we've got Iran. And the only thing that the government won't do, well, the two things I suppose it won't do, as your previous guest discussed, is not invest more, or so they call it investment. It's a spend. We should be honest about it on defence. And hasn't done anything to mitigate the effects of net zero. And that's just bonkers. And this is because the advice that the Climate Change Committee have given them is that this is the best way of reducing bills. And it's an orthodoxy, it's a state religion, essentially, and they're as committed to it, no matter the consequences, as our putative enemies are in the Middle East, are committed to their form of their religion. And it's unshakable. And I mean, if you read this report, I've read this new report from the Climate Change Committee that claims that the net cost of net zero is just £4 billion per year. Now, if it really was £4 billion, Mike, I wouldn't have ever objected. I'd have gone, yeah, well, I mean, it's about 120 quid a household. Knock yourself out. Go on, let's see how it goes. But that's just absolute nonsense. They've underestimated by at least 25 times. And other experts who have picked this up, and they've gone through the more qualified experts, I would say, than I am, people with some more forensic accounting abilities, and they've proven it, that the CCC underestimate the costs by at least a factor of 2 to 3, and they overestimate the benefits by probably the same proportion. And the other thing that they do, which is a terrible mistake, which multiplies the error, is they underestimate the cost of capital, the cost of borrowing. So it doubles again. So these people are ideologues, and they may be well trained in economics, but they're trained to lie, essentially. And they bury these assumptions. They admit that there are assumptions, but they bury the assumptions in a 100-page report that you then have to go and sort of unpick and unpack and then try and work out how they've done it. And then they give this sort of headline figure to journalists, such as Guardian writers, saying, it only costs £4 billion a year, never mind all the assumptions and the caveats. And then that gets given to Ed Miliband. Then Ed Miliband goes, oh, look, it's cheaper to build wind farms than it is to rely on gas and oil. Now, it's true. The price of gas has nearly doubled in the UK because of this new conflict. But it's still cheaper to turn that gas into electricity and to use that gas to heat our homes than it is to get our power and energy from windmills and solar farms.
But also, you're right to point out that the kind of the imagination, if you like, of these kind of public bodies. They drag the truth towards what it is that they want it to be. So they kind of invent some kind of think tank, fund it. Find public money to say, right, go and do that, and then ask them to do something. They get the report that they want, they get the result that they want. None of it's true. And it's really invidious, I think, that the way that's how modern politics now works. Because they then say, I mean, it was like we were saying, I think we were talking the other day about this, we are evidence-led, right? Evidence-led, and here's the evidence. Well, you've just made that up. It's not evidence. It's just your opinion that you've now got somebody who you've paid to actually, acknowledge that what you've said is right. I find it really, actually, quite objectionable.
Yeah, it's complete. It's completely obnoxious. I mean, they made a big song and dance about evidence-based policy making,
Right.
but no sooner as they said those words, and it became policy-based evidence making,
Right.
and you can see it. And the way, I mean, and it's you can't build a ministry of truth. Right, we work out what the answer is by people disagreeing with each other. But they've abolished that. They've abolished that in universities, and they've abolished that in so-called civil society, all these think tanks and so on. And they've abolished it in Parliament because Parliament just hands it all over to quangos like the CCC. It's a one-way sort of route to groupthink. Basically, it's to institutionalize, to create an institution of groupthink, and of course, in the past, they were a bit more honest about this. They said that meeting the climate change targets is going to cost 2% of GDP. But as that has gone on, as the reality of those policies has dawned on people, they've realised that's a really hard sell to the public. So what they've done is to sort of pretend that they never said that, or to say that things have changed and that the evidence has changed, and now that it's cheaper. It's cheaper now to build a wind farm than it is to build a gas-fired power station. And again, you find all of these experts with the thumb on one side of the scale pushing down and a finger on the other pushing up. So they've convinced themselves that this is the right thing to do. They've convinced themselves that this is going to make the world a better place. They think that environmental justice, as they call it, is equivalent to social justice, and that when the whole country is powered by wind turbines, there'll be equality, and misogyny and homophobia will have been abolished because for some reason, oil companies are the source of all of
It's
this
so
stuff.
annoying. God Almighty! Listen,
fantastic.
Ben. Great to see you. Great to talk to you. I'm told we're running late, so we're going to have to go. But listen, brilliant to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Ben Pyle, who, of course, is a very sensible voice on the subject of climate and just energy generally. And the idea, the idea that we're somehow supposed to shake our heads and go, isn't it great? Because a Lamborghini is actually cheaper than a space rocket. Therefore, let's get a Lamborghini so that we can all drive around in it and go, we're saving the planet. Well, we're not, are we? It's a complete load of old cobblers. Anyway, so I didn't know we were running late, Pooch, by the way, because according to my timetable, we're 8:40. We're going to talk to Hugh Andre. That's what it says on my thing.
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong clock.
So we're not running late.
No, I was looking at the international clock.
The international clock, which is often wrong, funnily enough. 7 o'clock, it says on the international clock. By the way, we've been asking for you to let us know. We've got the pin board behind me. Over there. We haven't got anybody in Central and South America. And, we need people from Central and South America to put some pins in the board for where you're listening from, all right? But anyway, listen, I'm delighted to say, for the first time, and the first time of many, hopefully, Hugh Andre, my good friend from We Served, has joined us in the studio. Hugh Andre, how nice to see you.
How are you?
Very, very good to see you. And we're also here with Steve Wall, right? Steve Wall is obviously looks like a very, very dangerous character.
Yes.
Who's been in the armed forces for 41 years or something ridiculous like that. You probably know how to kill people about 26 different ways. We're not going to do that. Welcome to the. What do you think?
Thank you. That's
Isn't it great?
Home from home.
This is literally our Pooch has designed it, built it.
It's great. Mike's man cave.
It's literally Mike's man cave. People go, it's got a bit of a sort of divorced dad feel about it, which people quite like, to be honest. It's like,
fresh beginnings and all that.
Yeah, exactly right. Welcome, anyway.
Thank you.
We Served, obviously, if you don't know it, is an amazing organisation. Started about, a year ago now?
Well, yeah, we released in July last year.
Yeah, right. And it's all about helping veterans getting out of the armed forces, getting into society, finding jobs, finding opportunities, finding maybe housing, all sorts of things going on.
What's the website?
Yeah. The website, tell us.
WeServe.com.
WeServe.com, yes. And you can see you both got the branded stuff on. What's going on? What are you here for?
What's going on? There's a lot going on around the world, isn't there?
There really is, but we know the armed forces don't seem to be very involved in it because we haven't got any ships.
No,
HMS dragging its arse all the way to Cyprus.
Probably have more luck getting some of those boats on the channel
Honestly.
than shipping everyone.
Well,
that
I said
way.
that the other day. I said, when you get in touch with the old, those people smugglers, and get the dinghies to to Nicosia quicker than this guy going from Plymouth, you know.
Yeah, well, I think on a serious note, I mean, we've been saying it for years, haven't we, Mike? You know, the chickens are coming home now.
Yeah.
And the sooner this government recognises, and not just this government, previous ones as well, who have just been tearing into the armed forces.
Yeah.
Steve, I met Steve in 1988 as a wet behind the ears young Rupert, straight out the Chappie factory in Sandhurst.
Okay.
Turned up with a
Hello. What can I do for you?
Turned up with my first tour of West Belfast ahead of it. He said, yes, very good afternoon, sir. Shut up. Go to the officers' mess for tea with the rest of the Ruperts and I'll crack on. But look, it's an absolute mess, isn't it? And I do like, there's a great quote from Sun Tzu, this Japanese warfare statistician, who said tactics without strategy is just noise before defeat.
Yeah. And it is really kind of embarrassing, I think, for a lot of us. I was saying, you guys are old enough to remember the Falklands, and I was in my early 20s when it happened. And I was quite, I thought of myself to be quite sort of, anarchistic. I was a bit of a punk, I was into punk rock. I was like, but I went, I'll go. And I was really surprised by my reaction was, if they want to call me up, I'm there, I'm ready. And I'll get in a boat and I'll sail down to the South Atlantic and I'll fight the Argies, because that's what we do. We've had pride in our nation, right?
I was very...
But now, when you think about other kids who would be that age now, say, going, what are you going to do in Cyprus exactly? Where are you going to fight? Who are you fighting? Yeah. And and so people, I think, don't have that same zeal, if you know what I mean, because whose side are you on, and what are we doing? And Starmer doesn't help because he doesn't seem to know what he's doing. There's no Britain to defend anymore, it seems to me.
Yeah, we were talking about this. It's community, and Steve here, as you said, 42 years service in the military, and he's joined as the head of community for We Serve, because, as you know, Mike, back in 2023, we surveyed over 200,000 veterans and their families and asked them what they want, what they need.
Yeah.
And the second most important thing after employment, the job, was community, being back in the tribe, part of the brotherhood, where you've got purpose and meaning, shared values, and that's exactly what Steve is all about at We Serve. You might want to just...
Steve, talk to us.
I mean, it's such a good point, because a good way to explain it, if you go back to that time in the Falklands, where the British flag waving and the patriotism, and that's what made me join up. I was serving in the Territorial Army at the time, but was about to become a policeman.
Okay.
And when I saw all that, I did exactly what you suggested. I went straight to the careers office and joined up.
Right.
And sadly, halfway through basic training, the war had finished, and I didn't get to.
So you didn't get to go down there?
I didn't get to go down there. No. But in those days, society and the army were pretty much reflective of each other.
Yeah.
And I think over years that society has drifted further left. It's more. It's very liberal now. But of course, if you're serving in the military, you've got to be prepared to give up your life for him, for the man next door to us, and for Queen, King or country. That makes us very different to the society. And throughout their service, they're protecting that society. And then at some point, they've got to resettle back into it. But now their values and their standards are very different, and that's a struggle to come back in that society. And therefore, the sense of belonging is absolutely lost. It's almost like a divorce when you come out. And so what we're trying to do is to create a secure platform, which is one part of it, as Hugh's described, is a marketplace for us to help bring together. We don't want to create a new job, a new military organisation. There are 2,200 military charities. It's a very congested, confused, complex place. What we want to do is take all those people that are already operating in that area and helping families and veterans, and pull them together into one place to navigate through all of that noise and confusion.
Because for those charities, I'm not asking you to be unkind about the charities, but I mean, do they work? And what are they for? Because I get the sense, and you and I have talked about this before, that they sort of come in to help people who have kind of reached rock bottom.
Yes.
as opposed to actually helping them before they get there,
Yeah.
and give them sort of a meaning to their lives, which would be better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as Steve said, there are 2,200. There are far, far, far too many military charities.
Yeah.
I mean, they do good work, let's not get me wrong, but...
Exactly. I don't
The reality is only 6% of the veterans community actually need real help.
Yeah.
94% of us, I think, are kind of reasonably, sane.
Capable of doing whatever,
And what's happened over the last 20 years is we've developed this narrative in the UK that service personnel, veterans are mad, bad and sad.
Right.
And I just absolutely deplore that.
But that's also the case with lots of other areas of life now.
Of course.
Where, look at the numbers of people now, and I know it's a very dangerous and tricky area to get into, but, the SEND situation where special educational needs people, and so many kids now are sort of identifying as ADHD positive or autistic and all of that. And you're kind of going, it's almost like an industry where people are looking to make out that they're vulnerable and they've got a problem.
Yeah, and I would suggest actually there are probably far higher levels of PTSD in the NHS and the police force, etc., than there are in the military. Because in the military, you're in a mindset where ultimately I'm there first to save his life, and he's going to do the same, and then obviously engage with and kill the king's enemy, to keep everyone safe. So, but I think. This whole narrative is just wrong.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've said this before as well. Like the bloody junior doctors now are going, oh, we suffer from ADHD. We don't like working at the weekend. It's like, you wanted to be a doctor. Did you think that when you trained to be a doctor, you might not have to cut people open, or you might not have to see some horrible, ghastly things. Similarly, I was a newspaper reporter for years. I'd dine out on the fact that I was in Bosnia for like 6 weeks.
Same time as
with the Yorkshires, and it was a bit hairy, and but I knew what I was doing, and I'd go into the sergeant's mess of an evening. And we'd get drunk and we'd smoke cigarettes and we'd go back to bed, and the next morning you'd get up and do it again.
Get up and repeat.
And you didn't know if what you might see the next day. I mean, I remember going to the massacre in Amici where they terrible, horrible scenes. And it was quite affecting, and but I didn't have to go to therapy afterwards, and neither did any of the other guys. Rob Stewart was there. He was having quite a nice time actually with his interpreter, who he later married. That's another story. But it's like you're a soldier. You get on with it. And I know that's not a very fashionable way to be now, because you're supposed to say, oh, but you've obviously suffered trauma. You better lie down over there, and we better give you some money. And I don't know what you feel about that. Am I wrong to say that you should just get on with it?
It's a very difficult place to be, because traditionally that's what we did, just man up and get on with it. And of course, we didn't have that same, like you say now, there's a label for everybody now. And everyone gets fitted. I've probably got all of those, ADHD and whatever else.
I'm sure you've seen some pretty awful stuff, right?
Yeah.
And you may have compartmentalised it, you may have hidden it somewhere, it might come out, I don't know. But I just think that we're too willing now to kind of ask you to kind of confess how awful it was and share. And I don't want to share.
No.
I want to just deal with it.
Yeah. I think probably men are particularly bad at that anyway.
Yeah.
And soldiers are even worse, and so many times a veteran won't share it until it gets so bad, and then of course they're in crisis and they need help then, and that's when it's hard then to navigate.
But is there a kind of quantifiable number of those people, in the sense that say for every battalion of people, or for every 100 men and women, are they're not all going to be like that, are they?
No,
there's going to be a small percentage of them that need help.
And what's really important, and we just mustn't forget, and this is what Steve's focus is, military families.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about soldier, sailor, airman or woman. But, two little girls say goodbye to their mum or their dad, not knowing if they're going to see them again. deal with that as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old.
Yeah.
The wife, or indeed the husband, etc., at home for 6 months on their own. And we were just talking about the other day when, mother goes into labour. She's got a toddler. Husband's in Afghanistan. What does she do?
Right. And I think for the families which are always overlooked, and that's why for every veteran that joins our platform, we give access to 5 members of their family.
Okay.
Typically, a service family will move every 2 to 3 years.
Right.
And so that affects a number of things, particularly health, education, and employment. Because if every 2 years they're having to start again in employment, my son had a number of schools, and it has to affect your education.
Sure.
And then each time they move, they have to find a local doctor, find a local dentist, which is not easy.
No.
And then, of course, by the time they settle into that, they're moving again.
Right.
And in many cases, like we mentioned Cyprus, if they're overseas, they don't have a UK footprint either.
Right.
So when they come back, there's a gap in.
Yeah. And is that because the government and government departments in general are just not very good at that kind of stuff? Could they? I mean, is it the MOD's fault, for example? I mean, could they be better? Is there something that we can ask them to do that they're not doing?
I will always defend the men and women in uniform.
Of course.
Yeah. But it's the men and women in suits,
actually,
who control the purse strings and make the decisions. I just found it absolutely unbelievable that a serving soldier, and sorry, we're all one big family, obviously the Navy and Royal Air Force, but I speak as a former soldier, that you ask them to go around the world, drag their family with them, do their bidding, and military families get no medical cover anymore. So to me, that's just wrong. We've got to start spending some proper money, 5% on our armed forces and families and accommodation and all the support infrastructure that goes with it. Because I tell you, God forbid, the king's enemy approaches our shores, because we're going to be really up against it. At the moment, we have soldiers on Salisbury Plain running around shouting bang, bang.
Yes.
Because they haven't got any blank
Did you
firing.
see that story the other week about how they've now had to create some kind of bat disco on Salisbury Plain in the little town that they have? And I used to live just on the north side of Salisbury Plain, and I used to watch the lights going off at night because they would have these pretend explosions with no noise, right? And apparently they've now had to be careful of bat conservation. And the bats apparently get discombobulated because of the flashes and stuff that are going on. So they've had to build this kind of bat area for them.
Right.
And I'm going, sorry, you're training people to kill, right? You're training people to go to war and kill people. And I know it's not very nice, it's not very pleasant, but forget the bleeding bats, would you? And just treat these guys and women as if they are actually people worth.
Yeah, and the military at the moment is hemorrhaging. People are leaving in their droves.
Right.
And I keep saying, we've got to, and this is, the We Serve platform. I was talking with someone last night, a very successful businessman.
Yeah.
I said, think of it like Larry Page set up Google, and he said, I want a platform where every man and woman in the world can find out whatever they want to know.
Yes.
And of course now you say, oh,
now we find out stuff we didn't know we wanted to know.
Yeah, but if I don't know something, we'll Google it. So We Serve. I want a platform where every single soldier, sailor, airman, every veteran, every member of their family can come to our platform and get what they need.
Yes.
A job, training, housing, accommodation.
Yes.
Financial, legal support.
A doctor.
Well, we have that already. We've already got 24/7 GP service on board. We've got a young lad up in Manchester, platform called Wobble. He's built it himself. We've got 150 counsellors.
Right.
So, for example, I don't know, if my daughter or someone wants to go and talk to someone, they don't want to speak to their old man or even their mother, but they can go on now and choose who they want to speak. So this is about public-private working together.
Yes.
I'm a big believer in that.
And Steve, so you're now part of We Serve.
Yes.
Communities and kind of, reaching out, if you like, to people who are coming out of the forces. What's your message to anyone who maybe doesn't know about We Served, who's now watching this and who will watch it? What can you offer them?
Yeah, I mean, you can find us globally on weserve.com. So
Yeah.
we're very easy to come. Registration is free, which
Okay.
is really key, and for 5 members of your family. And what we're trying to do is to pull together all the partners, all the charities, all the military profit and non-profit organisations that are supporting veterans, pull them all, we're not replacing them, we're drawing them to our website in order to connect them with the services that they require.
Okay.
And so on top of that, we've got about 5,000 offers and rewards for people to save money. So there's benefits in that sense. Coming downstream, we've got housing accommodation and sport and leisure coming on. And we are helping them navigate the congested space of all of that that's out there.
And do you
available
think
to them.
also it's helpful that they see you guys as sort of helpers as opposed to charity? Because I think there's a kind of a stigma with charities. I mean, if I'm going to a charity because I'm desperate, I'm already thinking I'm a loser. I've got to this terrible point in my life, and I've had to go to a charity to get some clothing or something. Whereas what you're doing is saying
veterans are assets.
You're an
victims.
asset. You're not a victim. And actually, we're not here to rescue you.
Exactly.
We're here to help you.
Yes.
Which is
exactly.
different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's helping them to navigate, to find the support, the services, and the opportunities that they might not know are out there. I mean, if you were to Google how many CEOs are ex-veterans or how many self-employed are ex-veterans, it's staggering in terms of percentage.
Right.
Oh, yeah. We're very, very successful.
Okay.
And I think veterans are an absolute valuable asset. And we just need to help them find the opportunities that they're looking for.
Right.
And they get stuff, they get stuff done. If you want to mess up the security for the 2012 Olympics, private company, it all went wrong. Who stepped in?
Right.
The armed forces. If you want to roll out a COVID vaccination program, who do you call in? Guys who do logistics in their sleep. And in the last few weeks, I've been speaking with building regulations institutes, residential property management institutes, even a very, very successful businessman, I won't mention his name, you'll know him, who runs holiday parks. And they've suddenly clicked on, hold on, we've got a talent pool here of people who are civil, mechanical, electrical, aviation, maritime engineers.
Yeah.
We've got guys who get stuff done,
FM.
with a smile on their face, facilities management. Even recently, we found out that the civil aviation industry in this country has only got 500 B1, B2 licensed engineers under the age of 30. That is shocking.
Yeah.
And it takes 4 years for an apprentice to become a licensed engineer to keep your planes safe. Yeah. Well, we've just put 15 former military aviation engineers through that 4-year program in 15 months.
Wow. Okay.
We have a huge pool of talents. I mean, if you're an employer out there, and you're looking for people with the right, and stop looking at CVs, the right attitude and the right aptitude, then call We Served. We've got a job board. We've already had, Mike, we've only been around for 6 months, and we've already had 6,000 different jobs be posted on our job board.
Wow. Okay.
And again, if you're a veteran, if your dad, your mum, your family member is, sign up for free, look on the jobs board. It's absolutely important, and we've got to get this country moving again.
Yeah.
And I think the likes of veterans and others with a similar mindset will get that done.
Yeah. It's a great project. I've always said it, and it seems to be taking off, growing almost as fast as this show, which is actually quite remarkable. Anyway,
2 comments on screen.
Couple of comments on screen. Okay, let's do it. Have a look. These two are the opposite of Keir Starmer, says Fraser. Well, they are. Yeah. They don't. They actually, one, know what they're doing, and two, are not frightened of actually admitting if they get something wrong. The Pixie says, "Thanks for your service, guys, for before and now. You are doing a great job." People love it. I mean, they do, and they respect you, and they look up to you. And I think it's shocking and terrible and awful that we have sort of sunk to this place where we can't send a ship to Cyprus.
It's embarrassing.
It's really, but I mean, to be rescued by the French and the Germans, I mean, seriously, really bad. Jacob Rees-Mogg is here. Jacob, very good morning to you. He's going to be joining us very shortly. We'll get his view on the armed forces and the state of the nation. But for the moment, Hugh Andre, Steve Wall, We Served. Once again, tell them where they can get it.
WeServe.com.
WeServe.com. It's a fantastic organisation. Whether you're an ex-service person or you are looking to hire some people who work in the armed services, it is a fantastic organisation and a really, really good place to go. And the best of British, which I think people don't say enough anymore. You know, we used to be really good at all sorts of things, right? And I said this earlier. I don't know whether you saw the cartoon in the Telegraph earlier this week, Matt's cartoon, where it said, you know, sorry that we can't be sending you HMS Dragon, but there's a bus replacement service. Then it feels a bit like that, you know, that Britain has this sort of generally now become a bus replacement service.
Yeah, and we are viewed around the world. I've done a lot of work in the Middle East, as you know, in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, putting veterans in there, repairing them. And you know, even the Qataris and the Saudis look to the UK as the motherland. They don't look to America.
No.
They look to the UK because we're gold standard. We've got the best soldiers. We have most certainly not got the best equipment.
No.
But we have the best soldiers, the best sailors, the best airmen. And I, for one, have been on a number of live operations. Steve's lost count. And I've never seen a British soldier take a backward step.
Yeah.
And so, again, you know, if Donald Trump wants to have a pop, good luck to you.
Yes.
Yeah, really good luck.
Yeah, well, he needs to be careful about overstepping that particular mark. And I'm a fan of Donald Trump. And when he said what he said, rather stupidly, you know, he needed to be told, oi, shut up.
Well, yeah, and who stepped forward when, you know, Article 5 was published in 9/11? We were there, and as our chairman, Ed Butler, was commanding the SAS over 9/11, and Ed called him out. And said, and it wasn't just Brits, there was Estonians, Canadians, Danish, brave men and women from all of our, you know, other NATO countries, and let's just look after our boys and girls.
Let's just do that, and also let's use your boys and girls as a metaphor for Britain, and go, this is the Britain that we want.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't want that Britain over there. We don't want the bus replacement service. We want the one that we know is actually the real one. Which is the one that supports our armed forces, the one that brings our armed forces to the table and actually makes them behave and do the things that they need to do for the country. Unfortunately, a piece of patriotism that you don't get very often. I've got an orange here. Well, it's actually technically a tangerine, I think. I might open that coming up in the next bit. We've got some news, I think, with Edward Hughes and then Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes with your news. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is facing intense pressure over the release of the first Mandelson files, admitting he personally overruled warnings about Lord Peter Mandelson's past links to Jeffrey Epstein before appointing him as US ambassador, prompting resignation calls from opposition leaders, including Kemi Badenoch and even Jeremy Corbyn. Elsewhere, the government has published initial documents on the controversial appointment, highlighting reputational risks that were flagged but ignored. On the economic front, sterling continues to weaken amid a global oil crisis triggered by escalating attacks in the Gulf, with oil prices surging and contributing to market turbulence. Regulators are pressing Meta, TikTok, and other platforms to do more to block children from their services, warning of failures in age enforcement. And in other developments, new cases of blue tongue virus have been confirmed in England, while MPs continue scrutiny of the Post Office Horizon scandal redress scheme. That's your UK headlines roundup. Stay tuned for more updates. Please remember to like and subscribe. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. Thank you very much indeed. I'm delighted to say, I mean, we're already at 7 minutes past 9. I don't know where the time goes, and it's Friday, which is also extraordinary. Thanks very much indeed to the guys from We Serve, by the way, who are fantastic. It's such a great organisation. But I'm delighted to say that we're joined live in the studio with Jacob Rees-Mogg. Jacob, very, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for coming back in. We saw you a couple of weeks ago.
Well, very few people invite me back a second time, so I'm very grateful to you.
Well, listen, you're very you have what we would call in the council world an all-day pass, so you can come back anytime you like. Interesting, many things to talk about really this morning, but off the back of what you just heard from the guys from We Serve there, isn't it fascinating? When I'm always very, very sort of humbled when I'm in the company of people who have served in the armed forces. And I spent some time, as I said, in Bosnia with the, I think it was the Yorkshire Regiment, the Prince of Wales Regiment, Princess of Wales Regiment, actually. They're just such outstanding people, and they seem to me to be the best of British. And it's like, why have we not celebrated them, and why have we not? How have we now got to a place where we haven't even got the wherewithal to send a bloody ship to Cyprus?
There's a great line from Dr. Johnson who said, "A man always thinks slightly less of himself for never having served in the armed forces." And I think there's an element of truth in that, and we do have a respect for people who've served their country and been willing to risk their lives for the country. What's gone on? I mean, it is quite extraordinary that we're, particularly in what's gone on recently, that we're just so unprepared. So it's not whether we've got the equipment or not, because somewhere in the system there is the equipment. But it's that they didn't think this was going to happen when all the signs have been there. There were warnings coming from Donald Trump. He'd already attacked them last year, and we did absolutely nothing. We didn't even have HMS Dragon ready. We didn't even have an aircraft carrier ready.
The list of ships that we have, which numbers something like 15, whether it's frigates or destroyers, in dry dock, is extraordinary.
It's absolutely extraordinary. And submarines, one of our submarines is broadly functional. Even that, I think, is having minor repairs. This is hopeless. It's bad management.
Yes.
And this is the thing. There's a lot of argument about why we should give more money to the MOD. And in principle, I'm in favour of that. But we've got to be sure they're spending the money they get well first before we give them more. And at the moment, I don't have confidence that they're spending the huge amount of money they already get efficiently.
Which I think takes us back to the other question, which is that nothing really in Britain works, and we get sort of criticised by those on the left who go, "Oh, you right wingers are always saying that Britain's broken and it's destroyed and nothing can save it and all the rest of it." When in fact it's actually a brilliant, vibrant, multicultural, heaven that we should all be celebrating. Well, maybe up to a point, Lord Copper. But the point is that we don't seem to have a civil service department. And I've said this, I used to say this when I was on talk, and I would ask whenever I would occasionally get a government minister on, I would say, can you actually name me any department in Whitehall that works efficiently? And you can't.
No. The vision of broken Britain is, I'm afraid, a real one.
Yeah.
And it's little things. It's potholes. The state of the roads is absolutely appalling. And potholes on A roads and motorways, it's not just on the country lanes in Somerset, where you may expect roads to be in less good condition if they're mainly used for agricultural purposes. It's not just that. It's all the way up to the Royal Navy being unable to send a ship out when needed. But it's also the hopeless, stultifying bureaucracy. I imagine you read through the 147 pages that
Absolutely. Couldn't miss it.
Mandelson's contract, there he was, Mandelson's contract was he was going to be ambassador to the United States, one of the most important jobs under the Crown. Do you know what his working week was meant to be?
Go on.
By his contract, 37 hours.
Wow.
So you think, either you're talking nonsense, because really the ambassador can't just do a 37-hour week.
No.
Or you have this view of the world where people, even in the most important jobs, aren't utterly devoted to it. Now, actually being ambassador is a job you do all day,
and it's
every
being
day.
prescribed to you so that you can say, well, actually, that's what it says.
I'm off duty now.
Yeah.
They're meant to do a 7.5-hour working day. This is just ridiculous. It's such a box-ticking view of the state. And that was the thing that struck me about the 147 pages, is the Prime Minister made his decision, very bad decision, and then the system just ticks lots of boxes to make sure that it's all right. Nobody really sits there thinking, is this the right judgment? And if you don't have judgment at the top, you won't have things working at the bottom. And it doesn't matter what they are, whether it's people going on welfare as a lifestyle choice, whether it's being unable to deport illegal immigrants, whatever it is, if you don't have judgment at the top, the implementation at the bottom will not work.
But this is why Keir Starmer is so unsuited to leadership, because he's a man, I described him before as a man in search of a law. Every time you ask him a question, whether it's, would you like a cup of tea? He's in search of a lawyer to go, excuse me, can I just get a yes or a no as to whether I can do that? And he's constantly searching for a reason to not do things. So, for example, the Chagos Islands, well, we have to give it away because the International Court of Justice says so. Or, we can't actually get rid of Peter Mandelson, even though we think he's been pretty badly behaved. we'll have to give him some money because a lawyer's told us that's the way we should do it. It's mad.
It's mad, particularly as the lawyers gave him the wrong contract.
Yeah.
In my view, they gave him a routine diplomat's contract.
Yeah, but even beside from that, right?
Yeah,
what should have been the question was, are you sure you want to give this guy a job, given what he's done before?
But you must have, in your broadcasting career, often had lawyers say to you, you can't broadcast that.
Yes.
And ultimately, it's a judgment. And the job of lawyers is to be cautious and to prevent any problem ever arising. Yeah. And therefore, effectively, they're there to say no.
And exactly. This is what I'm saying. And so what Starmer uses them for is as an excuse to not do anything.
Yeah.
Right? And to be a kind of, what we used to call the business interruption society. I mean, when I was in newspapers, right, we used to have lawyers for the same purpose. And I would have long conversations with them, and I would say to them, and the good ones would be those who helped you get the story into the paper. Because you would say, look, I want to get this in the paper. How can I do it? How can I phrase it? What can I say? What can I not say? And the good lawyers would go, this is how you do it. The bad lawyers would go, just don't do it.
Don't do it.
Right?
You can't print that.
But you can't run a business like that. You can't run a country like that.
You certainly can't, because we are not getting things done.
Right.
And, I mean, immigration is at the top of people's agenda in relation to what we are not getting done.
Yeah.
And we're not doing things because of ridiculous laws that we are implementing in a way that other countries are not.
Because these are the same people who say, well, of course we have to offer, sanctuary to these illegal migrants because that's what the law says. And you go, well, tear up the bloody
Change
law
the
then.
law.
And say, actually, that law doesn't apply to us.
That's right.
And here's why.
And pull out of all the international bodies
Right.
which are voluntary. The United States does not accept the authority of these international bodies. It accepts the validity of its own constitution and of its own Congress and President. We should go back to a system where the only law in this country is from the King in Parliament and, of course, the common law. And then we can actually govern again. And that's the big reform that either the Conservatives or Reform need to make after the next
exactly
election.
right. Because the only people who seem to be the most vocal about, how we must look after illegal migrants are, one, the International Court of Justice, the ECHR, and, of course, the United Nations. And nobody in their right mind takes the United Nations seriously at any point over anything.
Well, the United Nations is a joke organisation.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, it had Zimbabwe on its Human Rights Commission at one point, and the court that ruled against us on Chagos was not a properly constituted court, had no authority to rule on a case between two Commonwealth countries. It had no right to rule on a case that wasn't brought by one of the interested parties, and the case was brought by a third party. It was an utterly invalid, void, null court.
You may or may not have seen this, but I remember the day that Donald Trump went into Venezuela and basically kidnapped the leader, Maduro, and brought him to New York. And they had an emergency session of the United Nations, at which the Russian ambassador to the UN spent about 15 minutes berating them for invading another country without law, without due legal process. And I'm kind of going, is this some kind of irony you're practicing here? Or, and then the Chinese guy got up and said the same thing. And you're kind of going, why were you even giving these people the right to say these things without actually criticising them at all?
Well, because we believe in freedom of speech, even when people say things we don't like.
We do.
And look, the UN as a talking shop is there, and we have a veto, and we don't have taken notice of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try and replace it with another body. You need some forum where people can meet.
Would you not just do away with it altogether?
I wouldn't do away with the UN. I'd do away with a lot of the subsidiary bodies. I'd pull out of the WTO, the WHO. I wouldn't have anything to do with that. I think that's a very
that seems to
dubious,
be captured by the Chinese.
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely, and talked a lot of nonsense about COVID and scare stories, and wouldn't discuss the Wuhan laboratory leak theory. It tried to shut that down because it gets a lot of money from China.
Indeed. Let's talk a bit about the whole situation with Iran and what's going on. It's a bit, I've got, as I'm sure you have, members of my family who live in very different parts of the world. I've got a daughter that lives in Dubai, which is slightly unnerving. We speak on a daily basis, and she said, I'm like, how are you today? Fine. Oh, there was a bit of a missile strike. And you're kind of going, okay. And she's like, well, I'm speaking to my boyfriend about whether we should leave or whether we should stay. It's all a bit kind of uncertain, it seems to me. And we don't know yet whether or not the Iran sort of new Ayatollah, if you like, is going to be more friendly to us or not, or less friendly. But they still seem to be firing a lot of missiles out. So what's your sort of take on it all?
Well, first of all, I'm not in the least surprised that Miss Graham is showing proper blitz spirit and is carrying on regardless. I thought any daughter of yours would not be running away at the first opportunity. You're quite rightly worrying like the Billy-O
Of
here,
course.
and your daughter's got some backbone.
Yes,
So
exactly
stop.
right.
I really admire
Exactly
that.
right.
I think quite right. Having started, Trump must finish.
Yes.
That is the one thing I'm absolutely clear about. I don't think I would have started had I been Trump.
Okay.
Partly because of the Straits of Hormuz, which was the obvious risk. And I believe in the rights of individual nation states. I think that intervening in the internal affairs of nation states is usually a mistake, even if they are awful, evil regimes. Having said that, every effort needed to be made to stop the nuclear program of the Iranians. But having started, you must finish. I don't know, and most of the people I speak to don't know how long Iran can go on with the counterattacks. My worry is that Russia thought Ukraine couldn't go on for very long, and Ukraine has gone on for 4 years.
Yeah.
The amazing bravery of the Ukrainians, but also the weaponry, the cheap weaponry that they have developed, particularly drones, to counterattack the Russians. Can Iran do that? Or is this more complicated than that? Because Iran, as I understand it, was supplying a lot of the drones to Russia.
Yes.
Now they're being used by Iran. So does that undermine Russia in Ukraine? And does America have the intelligence to know where these drones are being manufactured to destroy the manufacturing of them?
Yeah.
And America definitely has much, much greater firepower than the United States. A different league. And you saw that, the West as a whole does. You saw that with the use of the NLAWs, which were just able to take out all the Russian tanks with a handheld device. Western
And also,
technology
I'm
is way
told
ahead.
in Venezuela, and I don't know whether you read this story, but apparently there was some incredibly modern weapons used in the invasion of Venezuela, where they were using sort of sonic weapons, where you sort of go into a market square and sort of everybody falls over. It's like some kind of movie, James Bond like, because you've got some kind of horrendous thing that vibrates and everybody falls over.
If you, like me, watch the Avengers and the new Avengers,
I did like the old Avengers.
All the things that they had on those programs,
Yeah.
and Steed was coming across either to stop or to start, now seem to exist.
Emma Peel was to be honest, my favourite.
And then Joanna Lumley in the new Avengers.
Yeah, no, I much prefer
You
Emma
prefer the
Peel
old
and the
Avengers.
Lotus. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But so you're absolutely right. There is no contrast, no competition between the Americans and everybody else. But is this going to end up becoming one of those things that just goes on forever? Trump famously said, we don't want to get involved in forever wars. He seems to now be in one.
It's very difficult. That once you start, it is very hard to stop, and you mustn't stop. What have you got to achieve? What are your objectives? You've got to stop Iran ever having nuclear weapons, and you've got to ensure the Straits of Hormuz are reopened. In an ideal world, you then get Iran having a different regime so that we can trade with it. Because if Iranian oil comes back on flow without any sanctions, the oil price will fall rather than rise. I think the long-term picture for oil is a significant decline in price, because Venezuela, albeit very heavy crude, is going to be coming on in larger quantities. Iran, if this works, will be coming on in larger quantities. Ultimately, the war in Ukraine will end and Russian oil will come back. Enormous supply coming on a market that is priced at a very marginal level. Roughly, supply and demand are about 100 million barrels a day. And you miss or hit by 1 or 2 million barrels. If you're 2 million barrels over, the price keeps on falling. If you're 2 million barrels under, it keeps on rising.
Yes. And what about the business of subsidising the oil that we have to pay for? For example, at the moment, particularly those people in Northern Ireland, which Keir Starmer apparently has only just discovered. He went there yesterday and to pretend as if he was, cared about them. I think it's something like 75% of people in Northern Ireland use heating oil for their houses. Similarly, in rural areas, maybe in Somerset, I don't know.
Indeed, in Somerset.
Certainly in Sussex, we've got a big tank of oil, and the mother of my children's going, should we buy some? Should we not buy some? I'm like, I don't know, no idea. I think it's going to come down, but I'm slightly uneasy always about whether the government should subsidise the price of that, because I think it's against the principles of capitalism. One, and it's in the end it's everybody else paying for you and I's oil, which they shouldn't be doing.
I was Secretary of State for Energy when we did the biggest subsidy that this country has ever done. But we did that because gas prices had gone up ninefold. And there was hardly a business or an individual in the country who wouldn't have been ruined by this.
Right.
And then, of course, prices came down. But what we also did was we had an energy supply task force. And what we were working on was securing diversity of supplies to make sure that we wouldn't be caught by such a squeeze again. And have long-term contracts. Because although we had contracts that had provided us with lots of gas, they were all short-term, and the gas could be diverted to other countries when the price changed, including our Norwegian
And there's no
arrangements.
storage, right? Capacity.
No, our storage always had been the North Sea.
Yeah.
And when we had the North Sea and were using it properly, we didn't need storage. If we were to start fracking again, we would not need storage, and we would help keep prices domestically lower, because the gas market is not a global market, and the government's simply wrong about this. It's a series of local markets or regional markets with different prices. Now, this Energy Supply Task Force got wound up, and therefore when you have another crisis, we don't have that certainty of supply which we should have had. To answer your question, it is not yet extreme enough to start subsidising energy prices. If energy prices went to $500 a barrel, then you might think that you had to do something. But I certainly wouldn't do it at the moment. Bear in mind...
But you're saying as a principle it's not a bad thing, whereas I think as a principle...
Oh, I think as a principle it is... No, I completely agree with you.
It's a terrible thing.
As a principle it is a terrible thing, but sometimes you have to do terrible things because the alternative is even worse.
Right, okay.
Which was the position I thought we were in 2022.
Right. And so, in terms of, I suppose, the immediate future, say the next week or two, it would appear that things have stabilised a little bit. I'm not sure exactly how many ships are going through the Straits of Hormuz, but it's not as bad as it was a week ago. What should Keir Starmer be doing that he's not doing? In terms of, he seems to be particularly irrelevant now, even more irrelevant than he's ever been. Forget about the Mandelson aspect, but just in terms of his international strategy, he's all over the place, isn't he?
His international strategy was to be close to Trump.
Yeah.
And he's lost that by not allowing the air bases to be used. He's also lost all authority within his own government because he's no longer there by the mandate that he got in 2024. No. He's there because nobody can be bothered to get rid of him.
Right.
And that's a complete change of position. That means that the cabinet can hold him to ransom and he can't force things through. And you saw that at the cabinet meeting where Ed Miliband became the de facto prime minister, deciding whether or not the air bases were available.
Terrifying, by the way. I mean,
he's a very decent and highly intelligent man, but extremely dangerous.
Yes, and he may well be entirely, but like many people who are, quotes, highly intelligent, he doesn't have a sort of common touch, so he can't speak to people in the way that they want to be spoken to. He can't kind of explain himself in the way that he should be able to do, and he can't apparently convince anyone that he's anything other than crazy, because he's known as Mad Ed Miliband. And that may be unfair, but people don't trust him.
Well, his obsession with net zero is extremely expensive and is costing us tens into the hundreds of billions of pounds to prepare for something that nobody else in the world is doing.
Right.
And so it's a very, very bad and expensive policy. It's making the UK
and now it's
cold
even
and
more
poor.
ridiculous, given what's happening in the Middle East and given what's happening to the oil prices and what's happening to the gas markets and all the rest of it. It appears to be a completely sort of wrong-headed obsession.
We should and must use our own resources. We must use the North Sea and we must use shale gas. We must frack. We do actually frack in this country.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, we do. I met a company that wanted to frack, and it was really interesting. They have a license to frack for oil at a near surface level, but they can't go really deep and frack for gas, even though the fracking at the higher level causes more earth movements than fracking at the lower level.
And so who's given them the license to frack at the higher level?
His Majesty's government. I mean, these licenses have been around for years. The anti-fracking thing is nothing to do with the science on fracking. It is purely ideological against using our own resources and in favour of renewables that aren't always there. It's nothing to do with whether fracking is safe or not.
No, because they've never proven that it isn't safe. You know,
they've proved that it is safe. There's an enormous amount of evidence to show that it's safe.
In all the places where they used to do it, like when they used to do it around Blackpool, you know, those who were against it would say, "Oh, there's been an earthquake." You know, there are earthquakes happening all the time.
That's right.
All the time.
The level of earth tremor from fracking is lower than you get from a rockfall in a disused coal mine.
Right.
And we're also fracking. There's this. I think it's in Cornwall. They're using underground hot water to get energy.
Right.
That involves fracking.
Yes.
So you do it when it's some sort of nice little green idea, but you suddenly say it creates earthquakes. And everyone thinks of San Francisco and tsunamis and things like that. As you rightly say, there are little movements in the earth day in, day out,
Right.
most of them hardly measurable.
Exactly. We're almost at the end of the show. I know. I have a question for you, right?
We've got an announcement.
We've got a question for you because I learned this week, because of Pooch, about a character who is known as one of the greatest physicists and mathematicians of our time, James Clerk Maxwell, who's a Scotsman, apparently. And he was a kind of, is it right to say he was a sort of compadre of Einstein and precursor of Einstein? And I'd never heard of this guy, right? Which might be partially due to my insufficient education. Do you know about James Clerk Maxwell? And do you have
I know very little about him. I've heard of him, but
he's one of the most unknown sort of scientists to me. Whereas apparently he was somebody that Einstein looked up to.
That I didn't know.
And what was the fact, Pooch, that you said that he was the guy who worked out something about electromagnetic waves bending around things, right?
Yeah, all the technology in our phones is based on Maxwell's equations. So,
okay.
As Jacob said earlier, he was a contemporary of Michael Faraday, and they were Einstein's heroes.
Right. So
you were talking about creativity, though, weren't you?
Oh yes, that's what we wanted to do. Yeah. So I wanted to say to you, as a man who I regard as creative and intelligent and interesting and innovative, and I'm sorry to put all of those things in one sentence. I worry, and I used to say this as a joke when I used to do the overnight show at TalkSport, that I worry that the human race is evolving backwards and we're actually getting stupider as we get older. And some of the people who have been put in charge of us have become more stupid. When you look at somebody like him, I worry that we don't produce people like that much anymore. You know, Elon Musk obviously is a sort of slightly mad genius, but there's not many people like that, and he gets vilified all the time because he's considered to be right-wing, therefore he must be mad. But do you worry that we don't have enough creativity in this country anymore?
No man is a prophet in his own land, or indeed in his own time. And perhaps I'm too complacent about this, but when you look through history, people always say this.
Yeah.
You can go back to Dr. Johnson saying that there are no great figures, political figures in our time, as there were during the Civil War in the 1640s and 50s. I think you can find Cicero making this complaint too, about how the figures of today are so... He's dealing with Julius Caesar.
Right.
And it's a natural human complaint because you don't realise how amazing people are until they've been dead for a bit and their legacy has become understood. And very often, like Maxwell, they discover something that isn't immediately useful. That they didn't have mobile telephones. They didn't need that technology. He had discovered something very important, very useful 150 years later, but not something that was immediately practical. I have a feeling those things are still going on, and so I'm pretty optimistic about human nature and human ingenuity and creativity.
And I suppose the counter argument to my own argument is that in the last 20 years or so, the advent of technology has been quite extraordinary.
Well,
you know,
aren't you the personification of this?
Possibly so.
Look, I basically come here to flatter you, but I really mean it.
Excellent.
Because what you are doing is fundamentally changing the nature of media. And if you go back just 20 years, just when I entered Parliament in 2010, if you wanted to get a message across, you had to go on the BBC or Sky. Now, you can just put up a little YouTube video. You've got your whole programme without the backing of a major broadcaster. That would have been inconceivable.
It would have been. Even 2 years ago, we couldn't have done it.
And look at the technology you've got. It's all actually pretty standard and not very expensive.
No.
Whereas I remember when I was a child, the BBC coming to film my father. And the number of people they brought, the size of the equipment, the recorders,
several vans,
several huge numbers of people coming.
Yeah.
And now you do it with one person coming, sometimes just with his camera.
Yeah.
His telephone.
It is amazing.
Which is
well,
absolutely
you do
amazing.
the same. I mean, you do a broadcast to the nation like once a day.
And I do it myself, and I do it with my... somebody else puts it up for me and takes out my costs.
I am the same. I mean, Pooch, if it wasn't for Pooch, I wouldn't know how to do any of this. I just sit here and talk. But you're right. It's an extraordinary thing. And if you think about it, and I know that this is probably a hoary old thing to have said, but people say that the what's now in my iPhone is actually more sophisticated than Mission Control was when they sent Apollo missions up to the moon.
By miles.
Right? And it's kind of mind-boggling.
Have you ever, which I did recently, I was looking at the quails in their incubator, dropped your iPhone on a stone floor and found that it wouldn't work, and gone back to the previous model.
Yes.
Doing this for a fortnight was so difficult, simply because of the amount of memory that the new telephone has opposed to the old.
Yeah.
And we just take it for granted. Because we upgrade the whole time, we just think we will have sufficient memory to do everything, and we forget how little memory we had just 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, Kelvin Mackenzie's calling me, sorry.
Oh, he's a great man.
Shall I answer it?
Let's speak to Kelvin. I'm a great fan of Kelvin's.
Kelvin? Oh no, it's just missed voice call, sorry.
Oh, it's a pity.
That's a shame.
Why have you got a postcard of Richard III?
Because this is our... we refer to Rachel Reeves as Richard III. Because we think she looks a bit like him. And so people send us in various different caricatures.
Well, let's keep her out of the Tower of London and away from children.
Let's keep her out of the Bank of England,
That's a very good idea.
And actually, I'd rather that she didn't have anything to do with the economy whatsoever.
I was worried you might be one of those people who admires Richard III.
No, absolutely
good,
not.
I'm reassured.
No, absolutely not. Listen, Jacob, great to see you. Tremendous. I mean, we could literally sit here all day. I'll ask you one final question about, this is the piece that I was slightly concerned about that I saw in the Times about printed food. 3D, I don't understand, we're talking about technology, I don't understand 3D printers. I don't understand how they could possibly produce food. Do you understand 3D printers?
I went to see an amazing company just outside my old constituency, just into Bristol, that does 3D printing of metal. And to watch that happening and see how they could do it and the precision of it was really remarkable. And the quality you get from 3D printing as opposed to moulding for metals is again, you just get that precision that you can't get otherwise. So I sort of understand how it works. I've seen it being done.
This again kind of feeds into an argument against my earlier comment about creativity, because 3D printers are incredibly creative.
They are. It sounds disgusting when it comes to food. But but then there's all this stuff about making nutritious food out of dead flies and stuff like that. I don't really want that. I like my roast beef and Yorkshire pudding made in a traditional way.
I mean, I'm ahead of the curve here, because when I lived in New York back in the 80s, I was invited once to the New York Etymological Society's annual dinner, which was basically a sort of barbecue in a brownstone building out the back with sort of fried crickets and mealworm pate and stuff. And it was actually all right. It tasted okay, but you wouldn't want to live on it.
No, you wouldn't. No.
And I didn't feel particularly empowered, physically having eaten it. I just remember getting in a cab on the way home, going, actually, I think I'm going to go into the bar and have a few beers to get rid of the taste.
But it is interesting that these things will happen.
Yeah.
And they'll be very popular, as some of the things, as Bird's Angel Delight was popular in the 70s, and Smash. Do you remember the wonderful adverts for Smash?
Yes.
Why do people on earth have such long arms? Because they're always carrying potatoes. For mash, get smash. And when these things, I love old advertisements. I show them to my children who think it, anyway, never mind. It's a side thing. When these new foods come out, they become very popular because they are new. Yeah. And then a few years later, people realise they're actually disgusting. Right. And they stop eating them, they go back to stuff.
You've now got it in my head now, because I remember the one that they had when they would sit around and they go, and then they smash them all to bits.
Yes.
And you're going, what?
It's so funny.
Brilliant. It is funny.
Adverts when we were younger were much better than adverts. They were funny and clever.
And again, when I was in newspapers, you had people who worked in advertising agencies, like the Satchys and various others, Tim Bell. These were brilliant people, and they came up with this, and they, of course, politically speaking, they came up with some great political ads as well. And And that all seems to have gone now, because there are no advertising agencies as far as I can tell.
Well, and also regulations. Everything's regulated out of existence, so you can't say jolly things, which we can. It's the great thing about this channel. We can say Guinness is good for you.
We can.
And not have a little announcement about sensible drinking.
No.
It's wonderful.
Exactly right.
Proper free speech.
You know, please gamble, what's the phrase they say? Please gamble responsibly. No, how about you gamble irresponsibly, actually?
Yes.
Because everybody's been at Cheltenham this week, probably gambling irresponsibly.
And they've been having a whale of a time.
Getting up to all sorts of nonsense.
They don't, I'm slightly less keen on gambling, because I saw with constituents how it could ruin lives. Actually.
Oh, it can.
But
you see, again,
anything to excess.
But again, you know, you are, technically speaking, I would imagine, a relatively free-flowing sort of conservative person. And therefore, I'm sorry to say this, but if you can't handle gambling, don't do it. And if you get into trouble, that's your own fault, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not for me to sort of rescue you.
I'm slightly dubious about the gambling companies and the way they behave. I had a constituent who put himself on the banned list for gambling.
Right.
And so he left North East Somerset and went, I think, to Southampton, placed a bet there. They accepted the bet.
Right.
And when he lost, they took his money. When he won, they said, oh, no, you can't have your winnings because you're on the banned list for the game. Hey, what? So
that's not good.
That's not good.
No.
So I think the gambling companies are not quite as straightforward.
I'm sure, yeah.
That's my big worry, actually.
I'm sure that's right. And you're right. And they should behave better. Anyway, listen, what an extraordinary show.
We can't go on and on all day, can we? We could, but we can't.
But this is the other thing, right? When I was at Talk, and we'd go, get out, you've got to go to the news at 9:30. And I'd have to, we would have stopped 9 minutes ago.
You've got AI news.
We've got AI news, and we've also got, the guy doing it is called Edward Hughes.
Of course.
Which is obviously a
rhymes
play
with
on
news, yes.
No, it doesn't just rhyme with Hughes. It's Hugh Edwards backwards. And we've already told him that he's not allowed to send any messages.
On your last trip, did you discover what the Earth people eat? They eat a great many of these. They peel them with their metal knives, boil them for 20 of their minutes. Then they smash them all to bits.
And then they smash them all to bits. Brilliant. And then they laugh in that very funny way.
Fantastic. Amazing. Jacob, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for popping in. We must do this again. I don't know what to say. We've had a fantastic week. We're up to 10.6 million, and when I checked this morning, I think it might be 10.7 million views now, because we're going up by a factor of about 100,000 a day. So I hope we'll reach 11 million by Sunday, probably. We'll be back, of course, tonight with Plank of the Week, 7 p.m. Tomorrow, Plonk of the Week, 7 p.m. And then I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday. We just don't know. But I'll be back here at 7 a.m. on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you to Pooch. Thank you to Charlotte. Thank you to all our guests. Thank you to Kelvin McKenzie, who's been trying to ring us for the last 5 minutes. I don't know what he wants. We'll find out shortly. Have a great weekend. See you soon.
And we'll finish with this.
Oh, happy Mother's Day, by the way. And here's Pooch spinning the plates. Here he is. This used to be Saturday night entertainment, by the way.
This is the generation game, isn't it? Where they then get amateurs to do it, and all the plates would smash. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is literally a metaphor for how he produces this show. Because there's so much going on.
Yes. The plates are kept spinning.
Brilliant. We'll see you on Monday. I've got a secret dinner to go to, which I'm not allowed to talk about.
You're not.
No, I keep being told I shouldn't mention it. Right, can't mention it. But it's somewhere near Cambridge, is all I can say. Oh, that's where I'm going tonight. Anyway, see you next week. Enjoy.